Hello everyone, welcome to the session. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Okay, fine. Procedures for downloading SQLite. We don't need SQLite to download. All right. So we'll start today's session. This is week 5, right? So I hope you have gone through the content. Have you gone through the content? That should be the first question. Week 5.
Sir, not yet. Like I was thinking, like we focus on the quiz, or should we like just cover the week?
Just go to the content and you can cover it after quiz also, because now later on, once we are done with week 5 and everything, we'll talk about more on week 5, right? And quiz, on the other hand, you just have to revise. Go through first 4 weeks and try to get as much as you can. And the things that we have taken in live sessions, lab assignments, things, all those things are really important. So just go through that and you should be able to score pretty good in the quizzes. All right. So in today's session, what we'll do is, so this is supposedly an activity practice discussion question, but so generally what we'll do is the content on week 5 is slightly on the heavier side. We have a lot to cover, and for that reason, what we are doing today is we are going to understand how to connect a database to our application with the help of ORM, and to how to create models with the help of ORM, and how we relate multiple models with the help of relationships. All right. So that is the thing that we generally learn in week 5, and the scope of today's session is we'll try to understand what exactly an ORM is, how do we create models, how do we use Python to create models, and then I will try to see one of the relationships that is used to connect one or more models. All right. So that is what we'll see today. So I'll be coding along. You can also be ready with your systems and code along if you want, or you can just watch it patiently, and so that you understand things, and that later on you can follow along. All right. So
So
that will be the
would we be able to code along if you have not covered the sessions?
covered which sessions exactly.
If I've not watched the lectures, would I still be able to code along? So should I try?
Yeah, you can. See, what is generally you will be learning throughout the week 5 content is what we are going to, the takeaway of those things is something that we'll see. And basically, that is what is useful as far as, creating models is concerned. So, this
Okay, sir.
session doesn't matter if you understand everything. Doesn't matter if you do not understand everything. You just follow along. At any point, if you have any doubt, you can stop and ask to me, and we'll try to at least give you an understanding of what exactly is happening. Okay, and what we'll do is, so basically what we generally do is we take these sessions into two parts, right? It is not possible to cover everything in single session, so we take it into two parts, and every part might extend to some time more than what is given time. But due to quiz, what we will be doing is the second part will be taking after quiz, so I don't want to load you with lot of content, and would give you sufficient time to actually prepare for quiz, and then later on we'll come back after quiz and continue with where we left off. All right, so meanwhile you can go through these sessions multiple times and be on the same page where we left off. All right, and so quiz, the revision session is something that we have arranged on Saturday. It will be like an open session, same time, 11 to 1. So this is where we will be taking a walkthrough of the entire mock that we have given. All right, the approach that you need to take while solving questions, and some good questions from previous quizzes, quiz 1 exam, basically. And so that will be the agenda of revision session. All right, because I know now you are in week 5, so you are well aware of that, at least what is there in each week. All right, now to get a grasp of those things, we'll see how to solve questions and go about it. Okay, so any question, will there be any question that is there in practice graded up to week 4 is something that we'll take in the revision session. Yeah, all the sessions are anyway recorded, so no issues with that. This session is also being recorded and live streamed. I'll share you the link of the YouTube link. This will be also available in the playlist later. Yeah, go ahead, Sanjuli.
So I want to ask, like, in the screencast, sir didn't give the procedure of down installing the SQLite thing. Uh,
See, so that's what. See, we won't be directly working on SQLite. Okay, I mean, we won't be doing. We won't be using a command line interface or any other interface to directly deal with SQLite database. What we'll be doing is we will be making use of ORM to actually deal with the database, and that is what has been done in the screencast. Also, we are using
Oracle
the ORM.
machine.
Sorry.
I think you are saying Oracle machine.
Not necessarily. Oracle is one of the SQL databases, but we don't have to worry about that particularly. It is so SQLite 3 is basically a local database system that will be using. It is a relational database, and we will be dealing with the database in a different way using ORM. Okay, so it is not going to be what we have done with the DBMS. So basic understanding of what database is, what tables are, what are the constraints, those things are required. You don't need to really know the queries and everything. Okay, you don't need to really know joins and everything. Okay, and so the basic understanding of Python classes and object is required. I think I mentioned in the previous session also.
Okay, so
This,
you will be doing SQL through classes and objects. Okay.
yeah, that is what is
Okay.
making use of ORM. Yes, yeah. So I'll explain what ORM is and how are we relating everything with the help of ORM. I mean, how are we relating our application with the database and how we are doing it with the help of ORM. That is something we'll see today. Okay. All right. So I mean, in no session or no content, you will see that we'll be, directly accessing the database with the help of CLI or calling SQLite or doing that insert or select star. All those things we won't do because we won't be running general SQL or general DBMS queries here. We will be looking at a different approach that is a Pythonic way of dealing with the databases. All right. Okay. Yes, Shreya.
Hello, sir. I just wanted to confirm the syllabus for the quiz, which is upcoming. So, is it week 1 to 5 or
No,
week
no,
1
it's
to 5?
week 1 to 4, not 5.
All right. Okay. And
Week 1 to
the
4 is quiz 1. Week 1 to 8 is quiz 2.
week 1 to 8 is quiz 2. Okay.
Yes.
And we will have a separate coding exam, which is separate from the quizzes.
No.
Okay. For programming and data structures in Python, for that we will have.
Yeah. So I think PDSA has OP, right? Online product proctored programming exam. So that is something we don't have in AppDev. Okay. So you will
Okay.
be evaluated based on the two quizzes, end term, programming assignments, and yeah, that is all.
Yeah, the programming assignments are the graded programming assignments we get every week.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right. All right, so I hope you're ready with your system. You have, I mean, VS Code is something that we have been using from last 3 weeks now. So I hope you're not really comfortable, but okay, now you're acquainted at least with what VS Code is
Sir,
and what we are doing here.
quiz 2 you said 1 to 8, right?
Yes, 1 to 8.
Okay.
Okay, fine. So yeah, so I'll be using VS Code, and we actually be creating a Flask app again, but then now we'll be installing certain things. I'll also give you some basics of virtual environment, what virtual environment is, how do we create it, how do we use it, and what exactly benefit we get by using virtual environment. All right, so those who are doing it in Replit, you don't need to really worry about virtual environment because every REPL by itself is a virtual environment. Okay, so you don't need to create one. Creating a simple REPL is as good as creating a virtual environment, but those are following along on the VS code have to do this. If so, this is not a mandatory requirement that you have to create virtual environment. Just a good to know thing. I mean, every developer should know that okay, what virtual environment provides and how it is to integrate, how easy it becomes to integrate with when the system changes, configuration changes. How do you make sure that your application still work and nothing, not any method remains deprecated and others. Okay. So this will be a set of two lectures. One session we are going to have today. One session we'll have it after quiz. Okay. It might be taken in place of activity practice session of week 6 or an extra session. All right. Apart from those two. So depending on how students react and how students want it, we will decide on that. Okay. But today we are going to have the first part of it. We would have taken it in this week itself, but then I don't want to, as I said, I don't want to burden you with the quiz coming up, right? So we will do it today. Try to understand, because you have already have to do the lab assignment on it, which is to some extent based on what we are going to study today. And then later on, you'll get the complete understanding, and then you can carry forward. All right. But while with quiz and this not being the part of not being in the syllabus of quiz one, we don't really need to focus a lot of time in this. Okay, but this is a very important part as far as application development is concerned, because this not only deals with the models part of MVC, but it gives it has its roots in controllers also, right? So in the last session we have created some controllers to fetch and see data. Okay, but that data was a part of file only. Okay, so I hope you have attended my, you're not even attended, but have seen my last session, last open session, I guess. So there we created some endpoints. We did some, controller, some business logic was created for logging and signing up a user, but the data that was there was part of file. Okay, so we could not, we were not very flexible with the database there. All right, and the data was not persistent. Here we are trying to create a persistent data, and that will help us to retrieve and work with data even if the application is closed. All right, so moving along, now we will add on to it and try to configure database with it. Okay. Okay, so with that I'll share my screen. All right, so I hope my screen is visible now. Can you see the folder, empty folder? All right, so this is where we'll be working. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll just open one command prompt here, because I'll be using command prompt today a lot, because we'll be interacting with the database with command prompt. So that is CLI version of interaction. Okay, because we do not have app in place. All right, every database that you connect with or work with, you should at least have an app to that interacts internally, right? But we do not have app. So first we need to focus on the database concepts. Then we'll move on to an application. All right, so today we'll be dealing with command line interface a lot. All right, okay, so I'll start off with creating virtual environment, installing requirements, and what is basically we are doing with creating virtual environment. Okay, now while going through screencast, initial screencast, week 1, week 2, you may have seen that the professor creating files through command line interface with the help of touch. All right, so that was the command that you may have seen every now and then, but that command is specific to Ubuntu and Linux based systems. All right, that won't work in work in Windows unless you have Ubuntu installed or WSL installed. Okay, you don't have to worry about these terms at this point. But okay, how do we do it with Windows? Okay, so one very good way of doing that is you just open VS Code in the same folder, and we'll be needing VS Code to actually code also. So I'll be opening that also, and you can see that there are files. No files created here as of now. Okay, a very easy way of creating files is you create on these plus file plus folder things, and you can very well get the files created. Okay, and you don't have to worry about what I'm doing with CLI at this point, creating files and everything. If you are very comfortable with creating files and folders from here, go ahead. Nobody's stopping you, and there is absolutely no need to know these things in detail. All right, it's just a way of just telling you, so that to let you know that okay, this is possible with Windows also, but the commands changes, right? So if I want to create a file, what will I do is I'll write cd dot angle. So you can see that what I've written is cd dot and then a closed angle bracket, and then you write the file name along with the extension. Okay. So I want to create a HTML file whose name is index cd dot done, right? So you can see that I've written cd dot angle bracket and then given a space and written index.html. I'll just zoom it if you can't see it. Okay. Okay, this will create an index.html, right? What is the alternative and easy way? Click on file, write the name of file. All right. But just to let you know, this is how you do it in Windows. Okay, cd.hash. So this is one file that we are going to create. The other file that we are going to create is app.py, where we will be creating a Flask app. So what do I do? cd.angle app.py, right? So file name along with extension. You hit enter and you will see there is a app.py.
It's not working in like
Yes, it is
in the
index.
terminal. I did
Uh,
cd dot.
yeah. So this is a terminal, as in, is it PowerShell?
It is this terminal inside of VS Code.
Oh yeah. So that is a PowerShell actually. So how do you do
Okay,
this? You
okay,
go to
okay.
terminal. All right. So you can see that there is a PowerShell written.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How do you change that? You see a down arrow out after plus sign.
Okay, I do command
Click
prompt.
on that and you go to command prompt.
Okay,
Okay. This will work there.
okay, okay.
So PowerShell is another command line interface. It will have its own methods. I generally do not follow that. That's why I have been doing everything from from the beginning command prompt. So better follow that. Okay. All right. Okay. Now this is how you create file. How do you create a folder? You simply write mkdir. So that stands for make directory. All right. It's short for make directory and also command. Okay. Now are we going to need any folder? Yes. We'll be needing template folder. Right. So you do that and you'll see that a templates folder is created. All right. And we'll need this index.html to be created within templates folder. So I'm simply moving it here. I'm not going into, command line for that. Okay. So this is how you create a file and folder in through command line in Windows. Okay. Has it changed anything? No. There also it did not matter much because we could do. All right. Okay, now we will need something like command prompt to actually work with virtual environments. All right, so the first thing that we'll do is we'll create virtual environment. This will be done with the help of an extension of Python, which is it is an inbuilt library, so you don't have to worry about it. It is venv. Okay, virtual environment. How do we create it? We'll write pip, sorry, Python -m venv and then environment name. So I'll write my env. Okay, so I've written Python -m venv my-env. Okay, if it says venv is not recognized, just do a pip install venv. All right, so when I do it, when I hit enter, it will create a virtual environment for me in the same directory. Okay, so now this complete thing, week 5 content, now acts as a virtual environment for me. Okay, how do we make sure? We can see that there is a my-env folder created and it has a lot of files.
Sir, I'm getting a notification. We noticed a new environment has been created. Do you want to select it for the workspace folder?
Yes, workspace folder is this folder only.
So should I like do yes?
Yes.
Okay.
So one more question is that in the lecture, sir was always using a dot prefix when naming a virtual environment. Is it
Yeah, that
compulsory?
is a convention. You don't need to follow it. It is generally a dot prefix is something that tells you that this is the name of virtual environment. Okay, because you can see that my env is something that I've written to let me know that it is an environment. I could have written anything, right? My name itself, and that would have acted as a folder. But how do we know that it is a virtual environment? So I would do this, something like this. Okay, so then, so it is a convention. The developers understand that okay, this name, this folder with name others is actually a virtual environment folder. But this is again, you can see that it is not very intuitive to see some random name, right? So that is why my env is or env. Simply, you can start off with simply writing env. Okay, but I think this would have worked, and your my env folder has been created. Okay, yeah, somebody raised hand.
Yes, sir. Am I audible?
Yeah.
So, my question is whenever we are going to start any project, so we have to create one environment over there, right?
Hmm.
Is that mandatory, sir?
No, it's not mandatory. If you're if the project that you're creating will be in your system forever, you won't share it. Okay,
Hmm.
even if you share it, you will know that the files or the frameworks that you're using in the project are commonly available with every system. Okay, so you don't need to worry about it. Okay, but for example, if you are using a framework or a package whose version is very specific to you, right, and you might not find it in other systems, or you might have to download or actually look for that particular package, in quite detail, then you need, something that makes sure that you're working in the same environment. Okay, so it
Okay,
is,
sir.
that's what I,
Got it.
while mentioning virtual environment, I said it is not absolutely mandatory, but it is good to know. Okay, so even now you'll be creating the project and other things, even if any
Hmm.
application that you're creating, do it with virtual environment. Will
Hmm.
in a couple of minutes we'll see why is that good. Okay, for your
Okay, sir.
lab assignments you don't need to. Okay, you don't have to worry about virtual environment for your lab assignments.
Okay, sir.
Okay, one reason for that is there is a limit on how much you can upload. And now you see we haven't really coded anything, and we can see in the properties of this folder how big this folder is. So it is around 24 MB. Okay, any project, I mean any lab assignment file that you create app.py will not be more than 200 300 KBs. Okay, that is superficial,
Mhm.
or what we call optimistic file size. Okay, but your virtual
So,
environment, you can see by itself without any coding it has 24 MBs.
so
Okay, so
this
you don't have to.
environment, yes, sir.
Mhm.
So this
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
environment file contains everything, like which is common, like
See,
Python.
basically there are so many modules. So what are you doing actually? You are creating a different, entirely different system of its own. Okay, an independent system in your machine. Okay, so
Okay.
for that it should have that processing power to install external packages, store its versions, make sure that Python is there, other scripts are there, which things. So you can see that there are scripts folder and so many scripts are there, right? So
So
these
if I,
virtual.
so if I
Yeah, yeah.
wanted to install any project related module like from Python, so
Hmm.
I can install it here without installing it in other files. So that
Yeah,
is
yeah,
specific
that's
to
what.
this file only.
Yes, yes. So that's what, when you create a virtual environment, I mean, why do we call it an environment? Because it is by itself a system of its own. Okay, so
Okay, sir.
every package you install will have its scope only within the environment.
Okay, sir. Got it. Now it's clear, sir.
Okay, and why is that important? And that virtual environment is like you're creating first the system, then you're creating the project on that system. So something that is very specific to our project, it will be very good to
Hmm.
integrate and run, right? So that is the
Yes.
reason we have this virtual environment. Okay, so yeah, so as we move ahead in this, I'll show you how it is helpful, and
Hmm.
while sharing your code and working with it. Okay, so now that
Okay,
you
sir.
have created virtual environment, you can see that there is this my.env folder. You don't really need to worry what is there inside, what files it creates
So
and everything.
how to do this in the command prompt? I didn't know.
Okay, you see this. This is the command that I've typed to create virtual environment.
No, not this one. Like you have this code dot. It will open Visual Studio Code. Then
Huh.
index dot html.
So you can see that I've written this also, right? CD dot colon CD, then dot, then closing angle bracket, then space, then index.html.
Okay.
Sir, is it
See,
necessary we should do only this, sir, or we can do it in file folder also?
what exactly?
All this index.html,
That's
markup.
what I said, right? I'm just telling you how to do it because you saw it in the screencast, right?
Okay,
Professor
sir.
doing it on command line. Do you necessarily need to do it? No, you can do it from here. It is very
Yeah.
interactive, right?
Okay.
I'm sorry.
So within the VS Code, there is an option to create a virtual environment, right? Like, will it be different to this if
No,
you
no, no. It
do?
won't be different. VS Code will give you that functionality by itself. All right. So everything that you do nowadays, what happens is everything that you do with the command line can be done with any application interactively.
Okay.
Okay. There is no difference. It's only we are following a more conventional and traditional way of doing it.
Okay.
All right. So yeah. So I hope the virtual environment is created for everybody. If it is not created, do not worry. Okay, I mean, because this is not completely required at this point. I'm just letting you know, because we are at the stage of now once we know this, we will be at a stage of creating decent applications with Flask. So I mean, when you start off with a new project, it is good to have co-virtual environments, right? So it's
Yeah.
therefore something that I'm telling you now.
So one more thing. I don't know if I'm jumping the gun. Like, so now
So
if we
how
code,
to change this disk, like you are in doing G in G, and whenever I open my command prompt, it always open in C.
Yeah, so you open, I mean, you navigate it through this particular folder wherever you want to open command prompt. All right, that is how I do it, right? So let's say I want to open command prompt in this music folder. So how do I do it? It is just random folder selected, right? But this is, let's say I'm creating my folder here and I want to open command prompt here. How would I do this? So you go to this blank space here, right?
Yes, sir.
Music. Click here. You will see that it is selected.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now that it is selected, write CMD and hit enter. So you can see that it has opened command prompt in that same way, in that very folder.
Okay.
Clear now? Okay, so you can try off with wherever you are creating this project or whatever we are doing today, wherever you are doing that. You see that it is selected. Okay, now currently we have already opened CMD, so it shows CMD there. But what if it is not there? It will show the same thing, same address, but slash differentiated. All right, then once it is selected, do not do anything, just write CMD and hit enter. It will open command prompt in the same folder. Now, if you really want to do it by CMD directly, how do you move for one step below? Do CD dot dot hit enter. So you can see that you are gone one step below. Now you are in week 5.
Parent directory.
Yeah. All right. One step below. So this is very tedious because you have to go one step, one step at a time. And now how do you come back to content? Do CD content. Okay. So there is difference between CD dot dot and CD. All right. So now I've written CD and content. I'm into the content. Okay, so this is certain things that you do in command line interface. Is it really necessary to know all these things? No, because we have a very good interface operating system. Okay, so you don't have to worry about this. Yeah, but for virtual environment, I think it is good to know these things. All right, so we have created virtual environment, but and the virtual environment folder is created. Okay, what now? We will have to activate the virtual environment. All right, so how do we activate? We'll write the name of whatever environment we have created. All right, then slash, then scripts, then again a slash, and then activate and hit enter. You will see that nothing happened, but you'll see that now this my env is coming in bracket. What does that mean? Now you are working in virtual environment. Okay, which one? My env. Okay, so this is an activated virtual environment. Whatever I do now, from now onwards will be limited to only that virtual environment, nothing else. Okay, so those who are doing this same thing with PowerShell just have to write mynv scripts activate dot ps1. Okay, so in command prompt you don't really need to write the extension, but for PowerShell we'll have to write dot ps1. We are using command prompt, so we don't need this. Okay, how am I able to write the command so quickly? I'm just putting up arrow. Okay, so it gives me the history of commands that I've put till now. Okay, up and down. So you can see that. All right, so the commands are coming.
Sir, like that pop-up came, right? That do I want to select that as that the virtual environment file? So
Uh-huh.
in VS Code, if that environment is already active, what will I see?
In VS Code, you won't see anything. You can see that my virtual environment is activated, right? But in VS Code, I still don't see anything.
Okay, so I'm seeing just some Python language mode, and then I'm seeing mynv colon venv.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. So you will see that where exactly here on the
No, 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 on
file
the
name
bottom strip.
here. Okay. Fine. There is no issue with that because what we are doing here is now within our ID, and you have to make sure that your environment is activated. How do you do that with this? Okay. If you're following VS Code way of doing that, VS Code will also provide you how to activate it. I'm not sure about it for now,
Sir,
but
actually, I'm coding in the terminal inside of VS Code. So, like, if for example, if it's already activated and if I still try to activate it, will it give me an error or something?
no, 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 no. It will again, I mean, it will stay activated. I'll show you from
Okay.
here also. So I just open a new terminal. Okay. Okay, this is a new terminal. Will this expand? No. So I mean the
So
font
you're in
size is not
PowerShell.
increasing. So you'll have to bear with me for this. Okay, I'll open command prompt here. Okay, command prompt is here. But see, the thing is, virtual environment is again confined to that particular command prompt only. Okay, so I can open multiple command prompts, but you see, there are open. But if I activate virtual environment is this prompt, it will not stay activated in other one. Okay, it will be limited to that particular only. For example, if my virtual environment is activated for this prompt, it will be activated here only. It won't be activated here. So that's why you can
So
see.
for the shell we open it in, it will only be active in that.
Yes, whichever
Okay.
shell you open. All right. So now you can see here also I've opened command prompt in the same folder, but still the virtual environment is not activated. How do we do this? Same thing. I'll write my env slash scripts slash activate. Okay, scripts env is not okay. Fine. So if this happens, change the slashes. Okay. So now you can see that it is coming here. All right. So now this virtual environment is again active, but again limited to this particular shell. Okay, so don't go into that many details as of now. Then how this? So don't have to worry about this. Just focus on one shell at a time. All right. So we'll close this, and we'll move back to this shell. All right. Here our virtual environment is activated. Okay, is that
Yes,
fine?
sir. It was not. Yeah, it was not active before, I guess.
Okay, fine. Okay, so we'll now move on to what today's content, right? So we are now at this point, ready with our virtual environment. I'm still not able. I'm still not like able. I'm still not in a position to tell you how it is helpful. I will tell you in a couple of minutes where we will start installing packages. All right. So what happens is when you activate a virtual environment and install any package or framework or whatever it is. For now, we'll see that we'll install Flask. All right. Doesn't matter if it is there in your system. Your virtual environment will not have anything. Okay, nothing installed because as I said, it is a system of its own. Okay, so you'll have to manually install everything. Okay, and store everything. All right, so first thing that I will install is Flask. Okay, so I'll write pip install Flask.
Those who have installed Flask also have to install
Everybody has
it.
to do it, everybody, because see, even I
Okay.
have Flask installed, but this is not installed in my virtual environment. Okay,
Oh, okay.
so virtual environment will require each and every packages from the scratch getting installed. Okay, so my virtual environment as of now will have nothing. How do you see how many packages or what packages are there in your virtual environment? You just write pip space freeze. Okay, hit enter and you basically see nothing. Okay, so there is nothing here. What does that mean? You have freshly created a virtual environment and there won't be anything. Okay, so how do I install Flask? I write pip install Flask. Okay, hit enter and it will install in your virtual environment. So there are certain dependencies that Flask use. Okay, we can inherently use Jinja within Flask, right? So there are certain things that it install. What basically it installs is something now we can see. So I'll do the same thing, pip freeze, and now I'll see the packages and their versions also. Now this is very important because now you know what packages are installed and what version of that is particularly installed. Okay, so you can see there is Flask. Okay, there is Jinja 2, and these are certain other things that Flask inherently uses and creates our application. Okay, so this is my currently installed packages. The other thing that I would require is the main content of today, Flask SQL Alchemy. Flask SQL Alchemy. Okay, pip install Flask SQL Alchemy. Hit enter, it will install. Okay. Again, Flask SQL Alchemy has similar, dependencies like Workzeo, Jinja 2. So those things are already installed. That is why it says requirement already satisfied. But which are newly added things like Grinlet, type extensions. What are these? What do they do? We don't really need to know because they are dependencies of Flask SQL Alchemy. Okay. So okay, let these things get installed. Yeah. Meanwhile, somebody had raised their hand. Please go ahead.
Yes, so can you just repeat what does pip freeze do?
Pip freeze
Pip
basically
install, what is
lists out all the installed packages and their versions.
okay, sir. And so what is SQL Alchemy? Flask SQL Alchemy?
Flask SQL Alchemy is an ORM that we are going to see quite in detail now. Okay, so let
Okay,
me.
sir.
Are these things installed?
Sure.
Yeah. So these, I think it's taking them some time to install. Why is that? It would not take that much long. Okay, now it is. I think it's installed. Yeah. So now I just to make sure I'll just do pip freeze. I'll see that. So these are the things that I've installed. Okay. So now you can see that there is Flask SQL Alchemy. All right. So how is this helpful now? Now let us see how virtual environment is helpful. Okay. Now the thing is, let's say you created an application, okay, that uses this version of this package. Okay. For example, it uses 3.0.0 of Flask. All right. And let's say there is some method XYZ that was there in 3.0.0, which you are using in your application. Okay. For example, let's say I have created an app.py, and in app.py, I have some defined method of Flask, right? Let's say that defined method is, let's say, render template. I hope you are aware of this thing, right? Render template. Okay. And you have used render template. You will be using render template quite a lot in your application. Okay. Now let's say this application was created today, and 4 years later from now, you want to use the same application. Okay. But now Flask has, but in the 4 years, there will be a lot of updations that happen in Flask, and they have changed this method from render template to render only. What will happen? Everywhere there is render template, it shows some error, right? When you try to run it with the new Flask. So what is basically happening? Now this is where we'll bring the virtual environment into place. So what it does is virtual environment will make sure that your application run in the same environment where it was created. Okay, your environment had Flask 3.0.0, so it will install that version only. Okay, so from pip freeze, when you activate virtual environment and do pip freeze, you will know, okay, Flask is this 3.0.0 version was something that I used 4 years ago, and that had render template, but now it is not render template, it's only render. So I'll have to install actually Flask 3.0.0. Okay. So this is how virtual environment helps. Now this is quite tedious, right? To make sure that, okay, I'm using this version of Blinker, this version of Click, 0.4.6 version of Coloroma. Who will remember this? Okay. So what do you do is you save everything, each and everything in a new file. Okay. And how do you do this? You do this with this simple command, pip freeze. Then you do this angle bracket, and then you write anything you want, but we write something that we are known, that we generally may have read somewhere. So it is requirements.txt. Okay, I hope you read this file name somewhere, right? So what basically are we doing is, we are, whatever is written here, we are trying to store into a file called requirement.txt.
Sir, what was the command to install SQL Alchemy?
Pip install SQL Alchemy, Flask SQL Alchemy.
Okay,
See, this was the command.
pip install
Flask SQL Alchemy.
Okay, sir.
All right. So now, okay, something happened. Huh.
So virtual
So now when
environment
you
is
do
very
this
slow.
pip freeze requirement.txt, what happens is, now when you check your folder structure, you have this text file, and see what it stores. It stores all the same, I mean, all the packages along with their versions. Okay. Now, how is this helpful? Let's say this computer is, for some reason it got bad and it's not working now. Okay. And you have to use another system. This is one scenario, or you have to use the same version into, 3-4 years later. So what will you do? You will with this application only, you will be sharing this requirement.txt because you have saved it today. All right. Later on, when you activate the virtual environment in that another system, you will install this one by one. And how do we install this directly from requirement.txt? What we'll do is I'll write pip install. I mean, I can do one by one, Flask, SQL Alchemy, Coloroma, and all those things. But how do I do it in a one go? I'll write pip install, then I'll write, you read from hyphen R is something that tells that you install packages which are read from requirements.txt. Right. So when I hit enter, it will start installing each and every packages and also will maintain the version of each package and install that. Okay. So you can see that it will start installing. Okay. Had they not been installed, it would have. But now since this is coming from the same folder, it already says that, okay, you have already installed. Why do you want it again?
So I didn't get it. Can you just repeat once more?
What did you not get?
So that my hyphen R requirements what makes. What is it?
Yeah, so what I'm saying is you have saved this file, right? Requirement.txt. This is very specific to your project folder and very specific to the environment that where you created your folder project. All right. Now later on, let's say when you change the system or when you share this file with somebody else, okay, you need to make sure that they, for running the same project, they have the same configuration in their system. Maybe they are using some other version of Flask. Maybe they are not at all using it's dangerous, right? So how do you make sure that they have same packages and their maintained versions? So what do? You share this requirement.txt. Okay. What they will do is first they will create a virtual environment just the way we did. Okay. When a freshly created virtual environment is there, what will be there? What packages will be installed? None. Right. So what you do is you do a pip install. And from where are you installing? You can manually write just the way we have written Flask or Flask SQL Alchemy. But to maintain their versions, how do we do that? We will write pip install. And what we are saying to the system is you install packages which you should read from. That is this flag hyphen R, which you read from requirements.txt. This is happening in some other system. Consider. Okay, so what will happen? Then the environment that they create will have same packages with the maintained version, the very version that was used to create the project. Okay, so that will make sure that okay, everything works fine and no method is deprecated or changed or modified. Okay, this is where virtual environment is very important. Is clear?
Yes, that's clear. Thank you.
Okay, any other doubt regarding virtual environment to anybody else?
So, like when we are working on the lab assignment, we can just directly install things on our system as well, right? It will not.
Yeah. Don't need to create virtual environment there.
So,
I mean, there
like,
is no one stopping you to do that, but no need.
okay, okay. So it won't be like affect our system negatively in any way, right?
No,
SQL
no, no,
Alchemy or anything. Okay.
no. Okay. All right. So we know what this requirement.txt is. We know how to create it and how to use it, right? And I don't need to this render at this point. Okay. So this is how we will start off with. Okay. So what I'll do is along with this app.py, I'll also create one another file called as models.py where I'll be writing all the models. Okay. So there are basically there are two files. App.py, this is where I'll be writing my main application, and models.py, this is where we'll be creating our models. Okay. Now, what are these models? Models are nothing but classes that represent tables in a database. Okay. So generally in a database, what do you see? So I'll just create a new file. This is just for your explanation. Okay. I'll write explanation .txt because this really doesn't have any significance as far as code is concerned. I'm just writing it for our discussion. Okay, so let's say we have this in database. In general, database system, what do you see and how do you store data? There are tables. Okay, so you have the name of table. Okay, every table has so many rows, right? So many rows, and every row will have some value corresponding to a column in the table, right? So you can say that in a table there will be multiple columns and each row will represent a value in that column, right? So there will be columns in the table. Okay, so what you generally now what these are the layman terms, right? We have seen rows, we have studied about columns and everything, we know what the tables are. Okay, but in terms of database, what do you say to these? These are called as element, okay, element or entity. These are database related terms, right? So a table is generally represented as an element or an entity in the database. Okay, what is a row? A row is a record, right? A row is a record in the database. So generally, every new entry that you make is nothing but a record made in the table. Okay, so also you can say it as an entry.
Also field, sir. Field.
Yeah, and the columns are fields, right? So basically, a table has multiple fields. What do you mean by those fields? Columns, okay, or attributes. Okay, so when I say I have a table, let's say uh, a student, okay, what will be the multiple columns that it has? Let's say it has ID, it has name, it has roll number. Okay, so these are the attributes of that table. Then there will be record. Okay, one. Okay, so this is each record. So this is a record. This entire row is the record, and it has a value representing or catering to every attribute in the table. Okay, so I hope you understood these terms, right? Tables, element or entity, row, record, columns, fields, and attributes. Okay, so these are the things that you generally see when you deal with a database or a table. Okay, now the thing is, since we are not using database or any query related things, we are not using SQL at any point. How do we make sure, or how do we relate it with Python? Okay, so in Python, what do we have for creating good structure, a good structural code? How do we create that?
Class and objects.
Yes, so that is object oriented programming. Okay, so now what we need to, yeah, we know there is class, we know there is object, but how do we relate it with these terminologies in this database? How do we do that? So we have class. Okay, so every class in Python would refer to every table in database. Okay, every class in Python would refer to every table in database. What does that mean? If I want to create a table in database, I should create a class in Python. Okay, so basically what is Python doing? It is allowing you to interact or work with a database without having to know what SQL is. Okay, and that package of Python that is helping us to do these things is called as ORM. Okay, object relational mapper. Okay, and which one particularly are we using? Flask SQL Alchemy. There are other ORMs also. SQL Alchemy is different from Flask SQL Alchemy. Okay, what is the difference? Let's not talk about that, but okay, it is different in subtle ways.
Yes.
Okay,
So the packages, like the package which is helping us is ORM in Python.
yeah, so specifically Flask SQL Alchemy. Okay, so the Flask SQL Alchemy is the name of that ORM that is helping us to interact with the database with not SQL but in more Pythonic way. Okay, now with that said, let us make more let us try to relate these things more. Okay, we know what a class in Python mean, but what about rows and columns? All right, so every row, what is a row in a table? It is a new entry. Okay, so that is very similar to creating an object for a class. Okay, so every row in table or every row in database would refer to an object in Python. Okay, what does that mean? If I want to add a new entry to the database, what will I do? I'll create a new object. Okay, similarly, now doesn't matter if there are records or not in the table. Can a table be defined by its attributes the way we have done here? I mean, if there is no line number 13, can I still say this student is an empty table with these attributes? I can, right? This means all the class variables, even if you're not created the object as such, but all the class variables can refer to attributes, right? Attributes or columns in table. Okay. So what does that mean? If I want to create a table with certain columns, I should create a class with certain number of class variables. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anybody else? Any confusion? Okay. So let's say when I say I want to create a table in database with this and this and this attribute, what will I do? I'll create a class in Python with this and this and this class variables. Okay. Also called as, again, class variables are again called as attributes only. I mean, you have seen object oriented programming. Okay, so that is the reason class variable is nothing but attributes. So if I want to create class, I'll create, if I want to create a table, I'll create a class. If I want to create attributes, I'll create class variables. Now, if I want to create a new record in that table, which is the actual data, I'll create every new object for that class. Okay. Okay, so now what we'll do is we will create, in database, we'll try to create some structure, and we will not be actually going into database, but something like this. Okay, so this is what I want to create. This is a table, but how do I do it? With the help of objects and classes. All right, because we are actually trying to learn the Pythonic way of doing it. All right. So what I want to do is, let's say, let us pick up two things. Two things as in two entities, two different tables. Okay. One can be, what was it? Yeah, one can be, let's say, material. One can be material and one can be item. Okay. So these are the two entities or two tables that I want to create in the database. Okay, what will material store? Different types of materials. It can be plastic, iron. All right, and what is an item? Item made by that material. They don't necessarily relate at this point, but it can be anything. All right, so if I want to create these two tables in the database, how will I do it in Python? Yeah, any answer on this?
Create a
So
class called
We'll
material
yeah, create two
and another class
classes.
called item with
right.
One will be the superior class like material,
That's okay.
and
That's
one
okay.
will
That's
be
okay.
the
I mean, we don't have to worry about superior, because see, I did not say how these two should be related at this point. They should be independent tables as of now. So what we'll do, we will create two different classes.
yeah.
All right. So, okay. Now this material, okay, let me just put it down. This material has certain columns. What are the columns? Let's say ID is one column. Okay. Then name of the material is another column. And any other thing that you would say? Okay, let us leave it for now. And again in item, ID is one column and name is another column. So you can see that this is the table. So what I've done is basically I've defined what should be my class, and I've defined what should be my class variables or attributes of that class. All right. Now let us give it some shape in terms of Python.
So
Okay.
material quantity also.
Material. Okay. Item quantity. Material quantity. How can iron have quantity? But items can have
no, but
quantity.
when material and item has to be related, then the item should contain some relationship with material. No,
That
sir?
will see, yeah, that will see later. How they
Okay,
are
later.
related, will we need any attribute, will we not need, is something that we'll see later.
Okay.
Okay, but at this point, yeah,
Class definition. Now we are only defining the
yeah,
class.
yeah. So what we are doing is actually we are trying to understand what should be the table name and what should be the columns that we want to create. All right. This is the idea. The generation will happen in models.py. Okay. Now, since we are doing this, we're using Flask SQL Alchemy, we'll import Flask SQL Alchemy. So what I'll do is from Flask SQL Alchemy. Okay, pardon my spelling, will change it. Import SQL Alchemy. Okay, so there has to be some objects or some things that are there already defined in SQL Alchemy that will help us do these things. Okay, so one of that is SQL Alchemy. This is very similar to how we create Flask object, right? From Flask, import Flask, right? So from Flask SQL Alchemy, import SQL Alchemy. All right. Now, once we're done with this, then we will define a DB object. Okay. Yeah, tell me, somebody raised hand.
So one question, sir. I think we had used Psycho PG to connect and db.connect in a Python course to connect to SQL databases and then
Yes,
fetch data and push data. So
right,
how is this
right.
different from that PsychoPG2 and this part?
That is, see, that is what you were doing there. You were actually setting up a connection between an existing database where you created tables, inserted data, fetched data, everything with the help of SQL commands. Insert this, select star, select this, right? So the connect or the cursor method actually had the entire SQL query. Yeah, hello, are you there? Hello.
Yes, sir. You're audible, sir.
Yeah. So what I'm saying, so is it the same student who has asked out or is lost?
So it
Okay. So
was me.
basic, yeah, yeah, no, yes. So basically, what I was trying to say is when you use those things, cursor and connect, you were actually writing in the entire SQL commands. Okay. What would that require? Understanding or knowledge of SQL. Okay. Here we do not need that. We will not. You'll see that we will not be using any insert into or things like that. We won't be using any SQL commands as of now, as such. Okay, everything that we would have done in SQL, we will try to find an analogy of that in Python and try to do it with that. Okay, so one analogy, I hope you got this. I mean, connecting the major objects, right? Tables, columns, and records. Okay, so that's what we are doing. If I wanted to create a table, I would have written a proper SQL command, right? Create table and then provided the attributes directly. But here, this is not the way we do it. Okay, here we'll be creating classes. Okay, so before you actually jump onto classes, you need to do some import statement, some configuration, and that is what we are doing here. All right, so this is where I import, this is where I just create a DB object. This is very similar to what we did in Flask.
So one more small question. When we were installing using pip command, there we have given flask hyphen SQL alchemy. I supposed that would be the same package name here as well, but here it turned out to be
No,
underscore.
no, no. Yeah. So the thing is, generally, you do not use hyphen in any variable name in Python. All right. That is why, while installing, while pip install, you can either put hyphen or underscore. That won't matter. But here you'll have to put underscore. Okay. I mean, are you getting? So see, the package
Yes.
name can be different, but this is a class name. Okay. This is installed. So we install package, but we use defined classes. All right. So
So this SQL alchemy is a class, and we are creating DB object from the class, right, sir?
yes, yes. Okay. Now, we don't have to really think about what exactly is what, because again later on there will be certain places where we might get confused. So we don't have to worry about that. This is, for example, for now you can consider this to be a convention. So let us try to relate it with Flask. So from Flask import Flask. All right. And how did we create app object? App equals to Flask underscore name underscore. Right? So this is, if you see, now if you compare these two, this is very similar. The coding style is very similar. So from Flask, you're importing something and you're creating an object of that. From SQL Alchemy, you're importing something and you're creating object of that. All right. We won't provide underscore name here. There's a different reason. Yeah, go ahead.
So you mentioned that SQL Alchemy is a class, but when we did like import pandas as PD, those were libraries, correct? So is class
Yes.
and library the same?
See, it depends on what it is coded. I mean, if you look at the pandas entire module, then you will understand what exactly is pandas or what exactly is, SQL Alchemy. Okay, at this point our assumption is Flask SQL Alchemy is a class, and it should be a class because see, we are importing an object from SQL Alchemy. All right, and then we are creating objects from it, and then we are creating our own classes from it. All right, so it depends on what exactly is there in the module. Okay, it can be an I mean, from a particular module you can directly import the class, or you can import a method, or you can import an object. So it does not mean that if I'm importing SQL Alchemy, this is necessarily an object. Okay, it can be anything, depends on what how it is defined.
So we are importing the SQL Alchemy class, and DB is an object of that class, right?
No, see, I mean, how do you create an object like like this. Yeah. All right. So what you're saying is right. So Flask SQL Alchemy is the package that we have used, right? This is a module. Okay. SQL Alchemy, this particular thing is a class. And what is DB? DB is an object of SQL Alchemy class.
Okay, thank you,
Okay.
sir.
This is something that you can assume at this point. All right. Now, for example, is this Flask import Flask, right? What this Flask is? This is the package or the module. Okay. This is the class, and this is app is the object of that class. Okay. Now, I won't say that if you import Flask, this is definitely always a class, or this is an object, or this is a method. It can be anything. In this case, it is a class. Okay. And what is app? It is an object of class Flask. Similarly, what is DB? It is object of class SQL Alchemy. Okay. Right now, later on when I use something else, I'll confuse you a bit, but you don't, that's what I'm saying, you don't have to really go into what is class and what is object, because I mean, although we are trying to understand SQL Alchemy or database in terms of classes and object, what is important is something that we'll focus on rather than what is imported and what is not. Okay, so I'll let you know what exactly we need to focus on, and what we have to focus on is the class that we create for our own use. All right. So, and what are these classes referring to? These classes are referring to the table that we want to create in the database. All right. So now if I go back to my explanation.txt, I said that there will be a material class that I want to create, which will have these attributes. Okay. So that is what I'm trying to code now. Okay. So what is the class name? Material. Okay. This is my class. Okay. And every class variable can act as attribute or the column name, right? So I mean every class variable that I create here will actually cater to a column in the table, that is this. All right. So here, if I write, I mean, if I go back to my explain.txt, what is their ID and name? All right. So I'll use ID equals to and then name equals to. All right. Now, what does this ID represent? What does this represent? It actually refers to a column, right? So that is what I'll use, db dot column. Okay, so you're telling the class that I'm actually creating a column whose heading would be ID. Okay, so db dot column is actually a method. Okay, then we will define what this particular column stores. Okay, so what does it store? It stores integer. Okay, but everything that we write here has to be renamed, I mean, named with, I mean, these are all methods coming from DB object, right? So I'll write DB dot integer. Okay, directly it won't understand integer, what integer is. Because if I write something like this, Python will tell me what this integer is. Okay, but I have this DB object defined, right? So when I say DB dot integer, it understands that, okay, you're talking about the method integer, which is defined in DB object. All right, this SQL Alchemy class. All right, now db dot integer is something that tells me that I'm going to store integer in this ID column. Okay, and what is something that determines the table uniquely? It is the primary key, right? So I mean, the ID of that particular table, right? ID column of a particular table is generally referred to as primary key, right? Numeric primary key. All right. Therefore, I want to make this particular column to act as primary key. So what I'll do, I'll write primary key, primary underscore key equals to true. This is set to true. So whatever you set to true, that column will start behaving that way. All right. So what is actually happened here? I've created a column which is named as ID. All right. It will store integer and it is basically a primary key. Okay. So when I set this primary key is as true, there are two things happening inherently. Okay. There are two things happening inherently. One is it is auto incremented. Okay. In case of a numeric primary key, it is auto incremented. Okay. This is one thing that happens when I set primary key equals to 2.
So,
Yeah, 1 minute. Second
so
thing that
is
happens is, it is non-nullable. You cannot just simply name, I mean, make it null. Okay, so these are the two inherent things that happen when I set something or some attribute whose primary key is 2. Okay, yeah, please go ahead.
So I was asking like what it is doing db dot column. Why you have first we should create something. First, why we do not have to create a database? Uh, I
This is what is helping us in creating database. See, creating database using SQLite or SQL is something that we have completely skipped off. We are not doing that. Everything will now happen with Python. What do I mean by this? When I want to create a material table in the database with this attribute, I will use a Pythonic way of doing it. That is what I'm doing. So I'm defining a class that will inherently create a table in database, and these columns will make sure that that table has these many columns. All right. So
okay.
I am not explicitly creating a database. I'm creating class as an object, and the database will create by itself. Now, how is this happening? How is something from Python is able to create a database in SQL with the help of Flask SQL algorithm? Okay, and therefore we are using
Okay.
its objects and its methods defined. Okay.
Okay.
Somebody else raise hand. Yeah, so just bear with me for some time. When with the database actually gets created,
Sir,
you'll know.
I have a question.
Hmm.
Sir, here we have written db.integer and then parenthesis. So
Hmm.
it means we are accessing something from db object. So
Yes.
are we accessing some attribute of that object, or we are accessing
This
some
is a
function
method. Yes, it is a method
method?
defined in SQL Alchemy class. So we create an object so that those methods will be applicable to the object, right?
Okay, sir.
So,
Right. So
so,
integer and everything. This is a method. db
so
dot
what?
column is a method.
So, what would be the name of the database? Like in SQL, we used to name the database and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
create
I'll come to
table
that. I'll
images.
come to that. I'll come to that. Currently, we are just creating class, right? Later on, when we'll configure this with application or Flask app, then we'll come to naming the database. Okay.
So
So
this
currently,
class
what you,
material,
huh, yes, go
yes, so
ahead.
this class material we are creating, that is an entity in the database. Like
Yes,
that's a table.
yes. Okay. Now, what you can't simply create a table and have nothing, right? So I will also have to mention what columns it will have and what they will store. What will be the
Yes.
primary key? Can some entity remain null? Can some entity, becomes unique, something like that, right? So I'll show you that also.
So we are creating a database using Python.
Python.
That's the difference.
That's the thing. Okay. So you'll see that we are actually making use of classes and objects to actually, interact or do something in SQL.
Hmm.
All right. Okay. The other thing, the name. Okay. So name is again a new column. So what will I do? I'll write db dot column. All right. Now this name will actually store text, right? So it will be db dot string. Okay. I mean the text in SQL becomes string in Python, right? The number in SQL becomes integer in Python. Okay. So everything, I mean, it's just like a masking. There is a conversion happening with everything. So these are all the analogies that we are trying to accept. All right. So this is one thing. Now, what are the other things that I can do? Once the primary key is set, you don't have to worry about setting primary key to other columns,
So,
right? Yeah.
but it also cannot be null, right? The
Which
name
one?
of the material.
Yeah. 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 So it cannot be
So,
null, right? How do we make sure that it does not remain null? I'll write
not null
nullable,
is equals to true. Acha. Okay, sir.
nullable equals to false. Am I making spelling mistake? I don't know. All right. So nullable equals to false. What does this make sure? That every record that you make cannot have an empty or null value for name column. All right. It cannot be null. Okay. I'll also make sure that every record that you put it in material is a unique. Okay. You cannot have two plastics. You cannot have two ions, right? Like that. So how do we make sure? I'll write unique equals to. All right. So you can see that now this is very similar to how we actually create table in SQL, right? So we set it is non-null, we set it to be unique, things like that, right? So we separately specify what is actually happening. All right. So that is what is, I mean, this is what we are doing with class. All right. So we have created a class, we have created its attribute, and we have specified how those attributes should, actually be created in the database. So I've created an ID column. It should be, I mean, how do I say to the SQL Alchemy that it is a column with this, right? How do I say that it stores integer with this? Okay, how do I say that it is a primary key with this? All right. Now you see, I've used this ID, I've used this name. That is okay. I mean, I can name the LHS can be named anything. But how does this class have this method? This is just a new class, right? Okay, how what I mean, how will it understand there is a column method, or there is db something, or there is a db integer dot method? So how are these methods I'm directly able to use in my class material? Okay, that is not possible, right? So what I'll have to do, maybe these methods are defined in some other class and I'm inheriting that class. All right, is this possible? Are you getting what I'm saying here?
So yes, actually, kind of coincidence that we are also doing Java. So in there also they're teaching exactly the same things like objects, method, inheritance, and stuff. So yeah.
Right. So what I'm saying is, let's say you have a class, right? So unless you define a method in the class, how can you directly use it? Okay. So this column, integer, all these are methods. So if you're directly using it, they should be defined somewhere or defined in some other class which can be inherited, right? So that is what I'm going to do now. In order to make sure that these methods have a specific meaning, these methods become valid, I'll have to inherit the class where they are defined. Okay, so what is the class that they're defined at? It is db.model. Okay, so this is the class. So this is where I said, a couple of minutes back, I said I will confuse you with saying, so db is actually object. Now how does db.model becomes a class, right? So
So
that
we
this
are
is
inheriting that.
right. So basically, you consider this to be an additional class that is already defined in SQL Alchemy. All right. And db.model has these methods defined. So once you inherit this, all these methods and everything will become valid methods. Okay. Is this clear?
So this DB variable and DB dot model, both are same or different, sir?
db is different, but db.model is inherently part of this variable only, object only. But
No.
now what I'm saying is, since db is an object, db.model has to be considered as a class because you're inheriting something, right? This is to some
No,
Sir,
extent
if I
some
what,
change,
controversy.
sir, what I
if
meant
I
is, instead of DB, if I write my database is equal to SQL Alchemy, and I use my database dot column, my database dot integer, and inside that material, should I use my database dot model or DB dot model, sir?
Yeah, my database, because this refers to this object only. See, so
Okay.
my database, yes.
So,
So
so how
same.
did
This
you know
DB,
that?
DB, both DB are same. Actually.
Yes, I mean everywhere wherever I'm using db in this any class would refer to this db only.
Okay, sir. Okay.
All right. So
so
let's say if
one
you
more
use not,
question.
you don't use DB, you use data B. Make sure you replace DB everywhere with data B.
So this we got to know by reading the documentation of SQL Alchemy that there is something called dot model there. Is that how would you know that there is something called dot model inside SQL Alchemy? By going through the documentation
Yes,
or
by going through documentation. Yes. I mean, they will define, I mean, they'll let you know how you should define classes, what should be inherited, and, what are the attributes. I mean, I cannot just simply put columns or, attributes. Why to put column only? Okay, so those things are actually defined in the what we call documentation. All right, but what have we done is, over the terms we have extracted what is directly required for the course. All right, so if you follow this, you don't need to actually go through the documentation to quite extent. Okay, where will you require documentation? I have used integer, I have used string. Is there something boolean? Then you'll have to see whether it is there. Okay, is there something called as can I store a date? So do I need to store a date differently, or there is something called as db.date, right? So these are actually called as fields. Okay, so what are more, or what are the other fields apart from integer and string? That is something that you have to look at. Okay, the structure and everything you don't really worry, because this is something that we have already curated for.
so I guess in the last session you had mentioned during the making that application that there's a field called there's a type called password which securely stores that data. It doesn't show on the form. So maybe we can
Uh,
also look if password is also like integer, string, boolean, and password is also an
yeah,
type.
yeah, yeah. Definitely. Yes. Yes.
So
Right.
where do we tell this VS Code that we have to run from this newly created virtual environment?
Where do you
Because
say VS Code? Did not get.
my doubt is when I wrote from Flask SQL Alchemy in the very first line, it is saying that import could not be resolved. Although I have installed it in my what to say virtual environment.
Okay. So see, you first have to make sure. No, so see, currently you don't have to worry about that. Why? Because once you open the terminal, where is the terminal? Yes, here. Once you open the terminal and you activate virtual environment, all the imported packages.
Sir, when I installed the virtual environment using the terminal in VS Code, I got that prompt that in which VS Code was asking me whether I should whether it should use the newly created virtual environment to run code. What I did, I used the terminal, and then you said that I should use that command prompt, right? So then I ran the virtual that Python m VNV command there, and then I got a pop-up from VS Code in which it asked me to whether to use the newly created virtual environment to run the code
Okay.
in this folder.
Okay.
So you only said that I should say yes to
Yes.
it, so I
Yes.
said yes to it.
Yes.
Okay, so you mean instead of directly issuing a run here, we need to open the terminal, activate the virtual environment, and then we should run it,
Yes.
even
Yes.
in
That is
VS
what we'll
Code.
be doing. Yes. 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 See, so I am not using the terminal of VS Code, but this is not any different. This is something that is just a terminal, right? If I am into that same folder and if it has something called as my env, and if I try to activate it, it will be activated. Doesn't matter from where you access because see, you are working in the same directory. All right, so that won't matter. And why my another reason why I'm using this is I can zoom in and zoom out. That won't be possible in VS Code. VS Code terminal. So I won't be, very clearly be able to show you what commands I'm writing. That is the reason I'm using another terminal. Okay, but for your own use, you can follow along with this. Currently, if it doesn't show this, don't worry. I mean, not resolved. Don't worry. When you run the application, it will work. Okay, if it still shows error, you can share the screen and we'll try to solve it. Okay, so I'll move forward with creating another table. What is the another
Sir,
table that we have to
in
create?
the DB model thing, you said that we are inheriting the DB model class because the methods which we have used are defined in that class, right?
Yes.
Okay.
See, because this is intuitive, right? When you create a class and you create, and if you do not create a method in it, you cannot use a method, right? So if you are using
Hmm.
directly use these methods, either it has to be defined within the class or it has to be inherited from some other class, right? So that is what
Yes, sir.
is happening here. So when I inherit some other class into my class, all the methods and objects and variables get inherited, right? So that is what has happened. So that is how I can make use of this db.column method, db.integer method, and so on. Okay. All right, should I move forward?
Yes, sir. Oh, I got it.
All right, so very similarly I'll just simply copy this and paste, and I'll write item. All right, so this is my another class called as item. I don't need to change name or id. Okay, any issue with this copy paste? So what I've done is I've created another class called as item. All right. I've defined its variable called ID. It is again integer. It is primary key. Okay. I've created a name. It is string. It is non-nullable and it is unique. Same thing. Okay. Is this clear? Any other
So,
any doubt?
We should
yes,
not,
sir.
should we
So,
have it as a non-nullable, sir? For item, it can have no, sir. The steel bucket and steel spoon.
Uh, where exactly? This one.
11, yeah. Unique
No,
cannot
no, no.
be
See,
true, no, sir.
this is your choice. These are all options that it gives us. Okay, so db.column is a method that gives us these options. It is your choice whether you want to make it nullable or not. It is your choice whether you want it unique or not. I've just set it unique equals to true. That's all. Okay,
Okay.
okay. For you, I'll remove this unique. This means that you can have items with multiple same name, right?
Same material, different items.
Yes. Okay.
So,
Any other doubt?
so the way we do an SQL join, the inner join, outer join. So when
Huh.
we look up a primary key, so here do we do the same joins between classes with ID as the primary key? Does the
Yeah,
join?
we'll use primary key, but the join will now be changed with relationship. Okay, so we will see that when we will use relationships. All right. Currently what we're trying to do is, although they they relate in some sense, verbally, material and item they relate, I know, but currently with this code structure we are trying to create two independent classes or two independent tables in the database. That's all. Okay, how are they connected, whether one can store something related to the other, is something that we have not defined yet. Okay, can we do that? Yes, definitely we'll do that later.
Sir,
Okay, is this
like,
clear?
yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
Sir,
Yeah, go
uh,
ahead.
likewise, you said db dot date. Uh, I get attribute error. So how do I know what attributes can I define?
Where did you
Like
get error?
uh, I do db dot date in db dot column, then
Okay,
I
fine.
get error.
Okay, see, kindly first you follow along, try to see the configuration, then maybe we will extend it to date and other things. But okay, okay, let's see. Flask SQL Alchemy, all right, documentation. So this is the Flask SQL Alchemy documentation. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Here we will go into,
Configuration, right?
let's see, initialization, configuration, define models. Okay, let's see with define models. Create tables. Okay, just a minute. Let me write. I'm sorry for the background noise. I just realized it now.
Sir, I pasted the link in the chat.
Which link? This thing?
Yeah, the link for all the data types. I pasted in the chat.
Ajay, you paste it. All right. Declare it. Yeah, all right. This is what I. So we have used string, we have used integer, but these are the other things, right? So it's date, time, boolean. I talked about boolean, right? Float, other things. What you would need as far as project is concerned, as far as doing this application is concerned, is integer, string, date, time. That's all. You won't need boolean and things. Maybe you need boolean for changing the type of user. Okay, so generally we will see integers, string, date, time, boolean. Other than that, you don't really need to. Okay, so these are the other things that you can add as fields. Okay, there is a link shared in the chat. You can refer to it. Okay, I mean there are a lot of changes that keep happening on the what we call documentation. Therefore, we never be able to find out. But okay, just go through the documentation and you'll see. Okay, so with that, I'll continue. Are you clear with this model? So these are the two variables that we create. Can these be the only variables? No, there can be multiple other variables that we can create, right? So I can see that in explanation we have created quantity also. Let us create that. We'll create another column called as quantity. Okay, now see, if you want to copy a line just below in VS Code, just do Control D. Okay, so you can see that the place where my cursor was, it will copy that particular line in the line next, in the line just below. All right, just a quick info. Okay, now why have I done that is because I just wanted to change quantity. All right, and that's all, because quantity. Yeah, another thing that I would change is string
Integer.
to integer. So my quantity will be another column that will be an integer, and it can be null. It cannot be null, right? Nullable equals to false. I'll have to provide the what we call quantity. Okay, but I think it is okay if you don't. So I'll just remove this. All right. So you see, this particular class will be a table which will have three columns now: ID, name, and quantity. All right. This table called as material will have two columns: ID and name. Okay. We will later see how to relate them, but let us now try to create these two independent models in a database. Okay. This is all we need for models. Let us save it. Okay. All right. Now we'll move on to app and do things like configuration. Okay, so this is now something, this is a place which we are somewhat familiar with, right? We know what is Flask, we know what this app is. All right, at this point we won't be creating app.route, we won't be creating any route. What we'll be doing is working on configuration. All right, so if I want to use things of this model, what I will do is import from here. So that's what I said, right? When I was going into models and I was saying this Flask SQL Alchemy, this is actually the name of module. All right, so that is how I use it here also. For me, what is the name of module? Model. Okay, and what am I importing? Certain things. What am I importing? I'll show you. So I'll write from model import. What am I importing? I'm importing DB object. Okay, material class. Okay, and another class is item. So these three things are something that I'm importing from this module. Okay, called as model. So this is how
That
I
means
use it. Yeah, go ahead.
so that means that model file is packaged for now.
Yes, for us it is the package. See, generally, I mean, package is a broader term. It will have multiple files. It will have other things that actually are required to be called I mean, required by the Python to identify this to be as package. But for now, you can call it as module. Okay, just
Module.
call it as module.
Sir, one
Okay,
question,
group
sir.
of modules is called as package. Yeah, go ahead.
Sir, we have not executed the Python file till now. So
Hmm.
how did the material and item tables get created there? Because we have just saved that model.py. We have
Yes,
not
as
run
of
it.
now they won't. As of now they won't.
So,
We will have to explicitly do it.
so how did it come automatically on your screen, like material and item, those table names, class names?
Because they were, see, the moment I imported model, they were defined, right? So they are defined classes in model. So they got, I wrote this.
But the file has not been executed till now. So just by saving the file, does that mean
Sir
that
typed it, ma.
I typed it, no? Material and item, I typed it.
okay? So for on my computer, it came automatically. Those two. Uh,
Achha, what you're saying is when I write DB, it says DB. Okay, see, what happens is when you imported model, the complete module gets imported, right? Now all the methods, objects, variables are now defined variables, right? So see, one more thing I'll tell you. For example, I write my name equals to Adarsh. All right, so this is a string. Okay, later on, so this is something that VS Code provides. It looks for defined variables. For example, the moment I write M, see, it will give me all the defined variables.
Understood. Yeah, it's a VS Code thing. We have not
Yeah,
executed it. It's not yet. Understood.
yeah,
My
therefore. So we
apologies
don't
for
need
that.
this. Okay, I hope you understood. So we won't need line number 4. All right, so from model, what we are doing is we are importing certain things. What do we need to import? Now I don't remember what I'll do. I'll import star. Star will import everything that is defined. Okay, so from model, everything is imported now. Okay, but to be very, okay, so let us not confuse. We'll use, what are we importing? We are importing DB, we are importing material. Okay, so we have instantiated Flask object, we have imported things that we need. Now we'll configure this. Okay, so I'll, for the configuration, now this is the place where we will define what should be the name of my database. All right, so I'll write app.config. Okay, now this is, a way of coding. This is something that is defined in the documentation. You don't really need to worry about this. When you create app object, there is a config dictionary that inherently created by Flask. Okay, config dictionary. There can be multiple things that you will add in config dictionary. Okay. There are things like database configuration. There are things like secret key, then APIs. All right. So these will come when we will see later on, right? When we study APIs, when we'll study security. But at this point, what do we need is we need to incorporate or we need to configure database, right? Now, how do we do that is with the help of this what I'm writing, right? So I'll write SQL alchemy underscore database underscore URI. Okay, let me check the spelling. It is SQL alchemy database underscore URI. So this is one variable or this is one key that get created in app.config dictionary where you will save what? You will save the name and the place where you want to store the database. Okay. There is a defined way in which we do this. Again, something that has been given by Flask SQL alchemy. So I mean, no point of discussing why is this something like this, but see, it is SQLite colon 3 forward slashes. This is something that they have defined. You have to do this. Now later on, I can whatever I name here. Okay, so
So
I'll be
you have done
using
URI or URL?
URI. Okay, not URL. Uniform resource identifier, not locator. All right, SQL Alchemy database URI. All right, so that has to be equated with SQLite, then colon, then for 3 forward slashes. Then you will mention the name of database, whatever you want. Okay, so I'll write my underscore test underscore db. So this is the name of database. You have to also give the extension. What is the extension that we are using, or what is the database we are using? SQLite 3. So it will be SQLite 3. That's all. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
So config is a dictionary here, right, sir?
Yes.
And this is SQL Alchemy database URI is a keyword.
Yeah, not the keyword, key. Some key that we are
Key,
defining
yeah,
in the
key.
internal dictionary that
Yes.
app object provides. Okay.
Okay, sir, got it.
All right. And that what is the value? This is the value.
So this is the value we are defining.
Yeah, what does this mean? That the database that you're trying to create will get created in the same directory and will have this name, my underscore test underscore db.
Okay,
Okay,
sir.
so the structure that is, the structure that is just before that, prefix to that, is something that you have to follow. This is some, just consider it to be a syntax that they have inherently added so that Flask SQL Alchemy understands it. Okay.
Sir, three times you have to do that
Yes, three
slash.
times, 3 forward
Okay.
slashes. Okay, 3 forward slashes. Then you will write whatever name you want, dot SQLite 3, because that is the database that we're using. Okay, so this is the
So what
config
is this? So what's this my test DB? This is the database name.
database name. Database name. By which, see,
Okay.
currently we do not have any database, right? So first we'll create
Yes.
database, then we'll create tables, then we'll set attributes, then we'll add records.
Okay, sir.
This is the process, right? For any
Yeah.
database. So everything we are mentioning in code, once the code runs, everything will happen accordingly. Okay. All right. Now the moment, okay. So we have now we'll start making use of these things. Okay. So I have imported DB. Now I need to make sure that my app object understand what DB is. All right. So what I'll do is I'll write app dot init app DB. Okay.
So
So
one question. So sorry for interrupting. Just one question. So once
sorry, this
this
is wrong. I've written. Yeah. Go ahead.
so once this database is created, I'm just extending the whatever was taught in DBMS. Can this also be opened later on in PG Admin 4, like in the PG Admin
Yeah,
4?
yeah, yeah, it can be. So PG Admin 4 is very, I mean, something that you would not even require. We will open it here in the local database only.
Yeah, my
Because,
question here is because you have mentioned that the number of rows should be sequential. You cannot add data. You have enforced some policies and condition while writing the model.py.
where,
What if
where,
someone opens it in pgadmin 4 and changes the data? Then how will Python protect those policies in pgadmin 4?
no, see, this is only making sure that you create an attribute that will store data in this format. That's all. You can, once the database is created, you can manually add data also. No issues with that.
But then these nullable is equal to false will not be enforced in pgadmin4. It's only enforced within this environment.
No, why? Because see, this is the way the database is created, right? So when you try to add an entry and you try to save this new entry without actually putting in the name attribute of it, it will definitely throw error.
Understood. Understood.
I'll show you. I'll show you. I'll show you. Okay. So we are in app.py. Okay. Now later on, what we have to do is, see, what we have to do is once the app object is created, we'll also have to let this app understand what DB is. How are you making use of DB, right? So how do we do that? We write app dot, sorry, not app dot. I'll write DB dot init underscore app. Okay, so what does this mean? The DB object that you're creating should be initialized for this Flask application only. All right. So, you will be able to interact to the DB object or using the DB object in this Flask application only. With respect to Python. Okay. Once the database is created, that is a different thing. Okay. So this is something that we have to do. And then there are a couple of other lines that we would do is, you don't have to worry about these lines, but this is required. Okay. So what I'll do is, the next thing that we have to do is app underscore context dot push. All right. So what is happening actually with this line? What I've written here is, I have told that the DB object that you're creating and you are using from different module is nothing but a part of this application. Okay, so you consider it to be a part of application. If you don't do this, what happens is, it tells you that it is something trying to interface, or something is trying to interfere with your running application that you don't want. Okay, this is very similar to your week for lab assignment, right? So when you use, when you directly try to plot, what happens is, your application is running on one path, right? And the plot that you're trying to do is happening out of the application. Okay, so then Flask gets
So
confused and
can
it
you
does not
repeat
allow.
this one more time?
Sorry.
Can you repeat the last, like the push?
Yes, sir. Like, yes, sir.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to explain. So app underscore app context, what it does is so what happens is, Flask application is something that is running on the server, right? This is my server. When I run this application, I should be able to see it on the browser, right? Client.
So
So server is a different machine and client is a different machine. Okay, and the module that you're creating is this. This is a simple Python module. So how will my application understand, or my server will understand that this model.py is a part of my app, right? Yeah, I did import everything, that is okay, but it has to be within the app context. App context is an environment where the application runs. All right. So to put any external module in the app context, I'll have to do this. What will this do? If there are multiple other modules here, I've created models.py, I've created resources.py, I've created application.py, so many other modules that my app.py is using. I will have to make sure that all those modules come under the radar of this app. Okay. And this lines make sure that. Okay. Verbally, this is the explanation. Inherently, we'll have to look into a lot of code. Okay. Is this clear for now?
So he said that app context is a module that runs in the app environment. So like when we add the other, so when we are saying app context dot push, and then we are doing
Yeah. So basically,
db init.
what we are saying is, you understand that these modules are your own and make use of those.
Okay. So but like we have not
So,
mentioned the module, right?
no. This will make sure that all the external modules get added. So
Okay.
even if you, that's what I said, right? If you have multiple other module, only this one line is sufficient to add others. But this will be required even if there is another module. Okay, so you need this even if there is one model.py. Is somebody is there? Sanjay, can you mute? I'll mute it.
Sir, in the
Okay.
YouTube stream, hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sir, in the YouTube stream, this VS Code screen is not being shown. The command prompt one is being shown. Why is that?
Why is that? I even don't know what is happening. This should be shown, right? I'm
Uh,
sharing the screen. Okay, just
no, sir.
let me check.
I
Let me
missed
check.
some
Maybe.
part and I went back. I could not see
Oh, okay.
that.
Just a second. Give me a minute. Maybe there is some issue. Maybe I shared a window by mistake. Can you check now?
Okay, sir. Let me check.
Hey, is the video lagging? Somebody is sending that. Is the video lagging?
No, no, that's not there, sir.
No, sir.
No, sir, it's
Oh,
perfect.
okay, fine. Okay, so let me know when if the YouTube video is showing the screen VS Code.
So we are not passing any parameters to the push method here.
No,
So
no, no. Yeah. So what? So your question is, how does it know that model has to be pushed? No, it makes
yes,
sure
yes.
that every external module is pushed. Does not matter if it is model or something. So
So
if that's what
whatever
I said,
Sir,
right?
modules
now,
I
If
have
now it's working.
okay, fine. Yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
Sir, now the YouTube video is working.
Okay, fine. So some issue with sharing.
okay,
Yeah, yeah. Go
so
ahead. Somebody was.
whatever module external modules we have, so just by writing app context dot push, everything is pushed under that app by just writing this line.
Yes. I've commented one for all modules. All right.
Yes.
Okay, so that is what we needed. At this point, there is no app.route. Okay, understand this because we are not creating any interface. Okay, we will be interacting with this application using CLI. All right, so no interface as of now. Why is that? Because I just want you to explain the other commands that we are using with SQL Alchemy. All right, if I directly mix it with the application, then the entire the thing purpose is defeated. Okay, now next thing that I would do is I'll write this very famous statement: if name equals to main. Right, and with that we'll do app dot run. Okay, although we will not be running this application as of now, but still we'll write this. Okay, app dot run. Okay, are these two modules clear for this two now? I mean, there are 12 lines in model.py and again 11 lines in app.py. Any particular line that is not clear to you?
So, sir, what I understood is that we are creating an application server, we are creating a DB server, and we are merging them in line 4 and 5. It's just like an iOS app or an Android app that has an application server separate and DB server separate.
Yes,
Is that
but
the
the thing
understanding?
is, the DB is not an independent server. It is making use of the application server only. Okay,
But
why is that? Huh. Go ahead.
in real life, the DB server will be separate and app server will be separate, correct?
No, no, no. See, I mean, if the database is dealing with a lot of data, if I don't want to see, currently we are using very lightweight data, right? Couple of tables, hundreds of rows. That is okay. So I am okay with using a local database. Okay, what do I mean by local database? The database file resides in this workings directory. Okay, and this is how SQLite works. SQLite is a local database. MySQL, things like MySQL, dbeaver, and Oracle, all those things, PostgreSQL, all these things have their own server. So you connect your application server and that particular database running on a different server. You connect those two, configure in that way. But currently, what we are doing is our application is using a local server. All right. So the server of database and the application by itself remains the same, one and the same server. So the data that I'm storing does not go to any other server. It goes to the same server where my application is residing. Okay. Is this clear? If I want to change it to MySQL, then I'll have to change this line. Okay. And you will see that in the documentation. I think it should be there. So in the declaring model, no, this is Flask SQL Alchemy. Uh, One second. So we need, yeah, configure the extension. Okay, so you can see that this is SQLite, right? There will be other places where we are using something else. Okay, this documentation has completely changed. I will get back to you with that. But if you want to use MySQL, then how do you relate to that is something that is separately given. So basically what happens, SQL Alchemy database URI, this thing remains same. Only the value, what should be the key, that sorry, the value of that key changes, and it depends on what database you are using. We are using local database, and the way to add local database is this, right? So you can see that I've used the same thing here in the code, SQLite and everything else, right?
But
Is this
that
clear?
used that SQLite dot SQL instead of that they used dot DB, does it?
Dot DB, yeah. Because so SQLite 3 is the recent, right? So we're using SQLite 3.
Okay, okay.
You can use .db. It will create a .db folder, no issues. But SQLite 3 is the the most recent one. Okay, is this
So,
clear?
so I have one question.
Huh.
So
Well,
since we are learning PostgreSQL in SQL, sir, so in future are we going to use that Postgres also? This
Not
is
really. I
a
mean, in app dev, as far as app dev is concerned, we won't be using those things. We will be, I
Hmm.
mean, later on, we might, extend it and configure other databases. That is not an
Hmm.
issue. But for the scope of app dev 1 and 2, we'll be using local database only. Because altogether, why is that taken into consideration is because if you have any external server, while giving
Hmm.
Vivas and everything, you might have to connect to that server also. Okay, what if the light there is no connection or something issue is there, and what if the server does not respond at that time? So that is why we are sticking with local server, because we are sure that this will be available with your system every time.
Okay, so that's fine. But if you could also like take a session or something, or tell us about how
Yeah, we
to,
can we can do it later. See,
yeah,
only one thing that you
integrate
have to
that
do
also.
is only one thing
Hmm.
that you have to do is change this. Okay, what to change,
Okay,
that has been given in the documentation. I'm not able to find it as of now.
okay, no problem. So we'll look at
All
that.
right, so this SQLite changes to MySQL, then the way of writing these things change. Okay,
Hmm.
the code and everything will remain changed. What is changing
But
actually?
this
Your
con
database.
but this app.py will be pretty same, right, sir?
Exactly same except this app.config line.
Okay, that's fine. Then there will be no problems.
So
Okay,
one
so
question. So
yes, yes.
just one maybe very silly question. So so at present we are making. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm trying to make sense of the. We are making a progressive web app using Python and an SQLite as a DB server and Python to make app. Suppose if we had to make an iOS app, we will use Objective C or some iOS SDK. It will again have the same. It will replace just Python with Objective C, and will replace something to DB with the DB that Apple provides or whatever provides. If you want to make
Yes,
something on Android, we'll use the Android SDK and we'll use the DB that Android provides. So
that Android provides. Yes,
is that
that
in this
that
project we are
and
making a progressive web app?
yeah, yeah, yeah. But we are not creating progressive web app. We are creating a simple web app.
Oh, okay. So it will not rescale based on the screen size and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that
Okay.
won't happen. As of now, that won't happen because we are not really into the front end, right? Later
Ah,
on, when we go into Mat 2, then we'll have progressive web app,
understood. Understood. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
right? So this is all backend, right? Models, app.py, logic that we are writing, this is all backend. When we actually learn view and everything, then we'll move on to progressive web app. Okay. Okay, so I'm assuming that this is fine. And just to continue with the this configuration thing, this is the beauty, or I mean, this is the power of Flask SQL Alchemy, that you don't really change your way of coding as the database changes, right? So it will remain same. The way of creating models remain same. I mean, see, this class will remain same. Doesn't matter what database is, right? But if you are using a particular, if you are using SQL, then it will change with respect to database, right? If you're using document database, it will change with respect to that. If you're using MongoDB, it will change with respect to that. Okay, but if you're using ORM, you will use Python, and internal configurations will happen based on the database. Okay, so while using ORM, you don't have to worry about what database I'm using. Only you have to worry about this configuration line, and this will make sure that the changes, the inherent configuration that is happening with respect to database. Okay, currently we have to focus on only Python. Clear? Okay, so with that done, let us now try to make sense of what we have created till now. All right, so I'm still in this content folder. All right, and my env is activated. All right, so what I'll do is I'll open Python shell. How do we open Python shell? I'll just simply write Python and hit enter. Okay, so you can see that it will show the version and everything. I hope you'll see this when you open Python shell. Okay, now we will be interacting with these two, basically not two, only one file, that is app.py. Okay, now if I wanted to import certain things of model into app, what did I do? Here I wanted to import these objects and classes of model.py into my app.py. What did I write? I simply write from module name import whatever I want, right? Similarly, what I want to do here now is I want to import everything that is created or imported in app.py into this shell. So how will I do? I'll simply write from module name import. Now, what are the things that I'll keep reminding? So let's not worry about reminding, just write star. Okay, star will import every valid variable, classes, objects, and methods. Okay, so when I do that, nothing will happen. It will simply import everything. Okay, so you can see that we are in the next line. What does that mean? There is no error and the import is done correctly.
Just
Okay.
can you
Now there is one
explain
more
this?
thing that you'll observe here in the folder structure. There is one instance folder created by itself. Okay, we did not create it. That created by itself. All right, this is something that Flask SQL Alchemy is doing for us. Okay, now I want to create database. How do I do that? Okay, so database is something that has to be created only once and only beginning of your development process. All right, so therefore we are using CLI and doing that. Okay, now how do I create
So
database? I'll simply,
you're running the terminal in the same folder, right?
yes, same folder. You can see that it is content, right? This
Okay,
is the
okay.
folder I've been using, right? Content. Okay, and my virtual environment is activated because I need to make sure that the Flask and Flask SQL Alchemy works. All right, so I've opened Python
Yeah,
shell simply by writing Python.
but somehow in my system, it is showing cannot import SQL Alchemy from Flask SQL Alchemy.
Yeah, even my system it's showing either SQL database URI must be met. SQL Alchemy binds
Yeah, yeah.
must be set.
Okay. All right. All right. We'll see. We'll see that one by one. No issues. Okay. But let me just write this one command. Just this is to create the database. What do we need to write? So since we have imported everything from app, we have imported DB, we have imported material, we have imported item, we have imported app object. All right. So what going to use? I'm assuming that DB is imported. So I write DB dot create all create underscore all, and this is a method that gets imported with DB object. I hit enter. Okay, it shows something, but okay, because this method is wrongly written, it is create, right? So you can see that now it immediately moves to the next line. Nothing happens, but we'll see one change. So you see this instance folder, initially it was empty. Now we have my testdb.sql3 created. So this is where my database is created.
So,
So even
Okay,
PyCache is created, right?
PyCache is something that is created with an env. Okay, I
so,
mean, we PyCache now. Why is that happening? Because now app it is using other modules, right? So this app is now acting as a package, right? When I said, what did I say about package? I said a package is multiple modules, right? So
so,
now my app, yeah, one second. My app is using models. It is importing other modules. Therefore, my app.py is now acting as a package. And when that happens, you have this PyCache folder created. Okay, fine. Yeah, go ahead.
so I am having an error which says like this declarative constructor takes one position argument but four was given.
Yeah. We'll see one by one. Okay, so with the app db.sqlite3 created, before I open this database file, I'll stop sharing and I'll ask one of you, I mean, all of you to, one by one share your screen and give me your doubt. Okay, we'll try to clear that so that we are on the same page. One second. Where are we? Meeting. I'll stop sharing. Yeah, so whoever are having error, you can please raise your hands and I'll call it one by one. Yeah, go ahead, Sanjoli. You can share your screen. Okay, for others, has the database file been created?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
It's
For
working fine, right? Okay, fine. All right, just share your screen.
So I have shared my screen. It says like
See, because you are calling db.model, it is not a method. Do not call it. Go to model.py.
oh okay, 1 second. Yes, sir.
So you see that you are calling it the parenthesis. Remove the parenthesis after the model.
This one,
Those pink color parentheses.
pink color. Okay.
Yeah, remove those in the upper classes also, material class also. Yeah, remove these parentheses. Okay, try again. How do you try again? You have to exit. Yeah, no. Exit.
Exit mean, oh okay.
Exit. Exit the shell. Right? Exit. EXIT.
So I think a control
Call
D
it.
will work.
No. Control D will work only for the running application.
Okay.
Exit with
No,
method. It is a method. Call. Exit. Call.
this one.
Yes. Okay, hit enter. Yeah. Now again open Python shell. That's all. Only Python. Yes.
Yes, sir.
That's all. Python. Right?
I
Python.
think
Yeah.
yes, sir.
Hit enter. Okay. Now you do from app imports star. Okay. Now you do db dot create all.
db dot
Dot create
create
underscore
all.
all method. Yes. Call it. Yeah. All right. So your database is created. Check your file structure. Instance folder.
Yes,
Instance
sir.
folder. Open it. Yeah. All right. Okay. You can
Yes,
stop
sir.
sharing.
Okay, sir.
Yes. Raja Lakshmi, please share your screen. Okay. It will be okay if I take 10-15 minutes longer, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Generally, these sessions extend up to 3 hours, but okay.
Is my screen visible?
Sir,
Yeah.
I'm getting an error. My instance file
See,
is
the thing is SQL Alchemy, SQL and A are all capital.
yes, sir.
In this, you mean?
No. What you are importing, not there.
Okay.
Yeah. So what you are importing, can you just this SQL and A. Yeah. Save it. This again. So whatever you are using there has to be used in DB. All right. L is fine. Okay. Now you can try again.
Do I need to exit or?
Yes, you have to exit and do it again. Flask
Okay,
con.
okay. Configs here.
All right. No issues.
Let's just type
Okay,
that.
save it. Now everything again. You have to exit and do it again.
Oh,
So currently we are using through shell, right? So it does not incorporate everything.
okay.
Every change made in app.py or anywhere, you have to exit and do it again. All right. So everything is imported. Do db.create all. Create all underscore.
Underscore. So there is an instance folder and
Yeah. So you have
one.
db. It will not open in VS Code. So leave it there as
Yeah,
of
yeah.
now. Yes,
I
Hasini.
remember you saying there was one more something that we created options in addition to DB, or that's it.
That is fine. Instance
It
folder
will
will
be
be
resolved.
created when you import everything.
Okay.
Sir,
Okay.
so one general question, sir. So usually in SQL we used to give username and password to
And
the DB. So how do we give the username and password here?
I think, sir, your voice is breaking.
Yeah, sir, your voice is breaking, sir.
Hello, am I audible now?
Yes, sir, it's fine now.
Yes, sir. It's clear.
Yeah, okay. So what I was saying is, I mean, you need a username and password for the remote server to identify you as the same user, right? But here your DB is local to your machine, so you don't need to authenticate yourself.
So, but in PG admin, we only created database on our hard disk only. So there in SQL to create a password and username when you used to use the
Yeah,
PG
but
admin.
that's what SQ, I mean, is that, so PG admin is basically you're using Postgres SQL, right? The
Yes,
database
sir.
is completely changing. PostgreSQL is a remote, even if you're using in your machine, you're using PG admin, which uses remote server,
Okay.
right? So you don't, here it is completely local. You're not attaching to any external server. That's why you don't need to authenticate yourself. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Somebody else wanted to share.
Sir, I just wanted to ask this. Like you mentioned that PyCache is created, and then you said something. What was that you said?
What I said was, see, why is PyCache created? Because PyCache is something that represents a package. Okay, so see,
Hmm.
this app.py is my module, okay, which is using one or more external modules. Okay, so now this app.py independently does not have any existence, right? For the app.py to work completely fine, I would need this model.py, right? So at the end of the day, what is happening? This is a combination of two or more modules together working to do one task, right? Therefore, they are now acting as a package. So when that happens, I mean, the main module, the place where everything else is imported, acts as a package. Okay, and when the package is created, this PyCache is created. Okay, I mean something that you don't need to worry about. But yeah, inherently Python is still Python, right? So it will do whatever is there. Okay, so you can even try using multiple modules, import one in everything else. I mean, every else other module has to be imported in one, and you try running that module. You'll see that PyCache is created because that what Python assumes is that now there are multiple files that are dependent, interdependent, interlinked, and now acting as one file, but have different independent existence. Therefore, now it acts as a not a single file but a package of files. So you have this PyCache and things created. Okay, not required for app dev, not required. All right. So I hope this mytest.db, mytest underscore db is created. All right. Now what we'll do is try to see what exactly happened with that db. Right. So you won't be able to open it here in VS Code. You might need some extension maybe, but you don't need to worry
So
about
you're
that.
not
What we'll do is,
sharing the screen.
oh sorry, sharing screen, right?
Sir, it is dot SQLite or DB dot DB.
Dot SQLite 3. Dot DB is also correct, but use dot SQLite 3. Okay. So now what
Sir,
we'll
how
do,
to exit? How to exit the Python shell?
just write exit and call it as a method.
Okay.
If my screen is shared, do something like this. Okay. All right. So what I'll do now is I'll open the database. So for that I have something called as DB browser. Okay. If you do not have DB browser, please download it because you will need it more often. All right. But for now, if you do not have DB browser, let us try to see an alternative. What is the alternative? I have it here. Yeah, SQLite viewer. So what you can do is you go to this. I'll share the link on chat. Not very efficient, which is very okay. It is simple, but what you'll have to do is every change made in the database, you'll have to again and again upload it. Okay. So I've shared it in the chat. See what SQLite viewer is. This is a web application that allows you to see a database. All right. So what I can do is I'll open my VS Code. I'll drag this my test db.sqlite 3. I'll go to my browser and I'll drop it here. Okay. I need to make sure if it is dropped correctly. Drop, right? No. Okay. Let us uh, let us upload. Fine. Let us upload from here. So where are we? We are in September 23, week 5, content, instance, this.
Sir,
All right.
were you talking about this SQL like SQLite browser.org? This
No, no,
DB
no.
browser thing.
No, 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 no. Yes,
So,
DB browser is something that you have to download. It is
is
a
it from
local
this site?
embedded application.
So is it from this site? Is this
No,
the
no, no,
like
no. This is not from this site.
okay?
Just
I
giving you an
shared in chat.
alternative. You have shared. All right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. So you can download SQLite browser or DB browser from here, which Ritvik has shared. But okay, if it takes time to install and everything, you can meanwhile view your database in this SQLite viewer, whose link I've shared just above that, right? So what I've done is I've loaded my database in this particular file. I hope you saw how I did that. Now you can see that there are two columns or two tables created actually. You see item and material. So these are actually the tables that are created with our, SQL Alchemy. Okay. Now let us try to see it in more detail or more clearly. So I'll open it in DB browser. Okay. So I'll open DB browser. We'll go to the same file. Okay, so now you can see that the data structure has two tables, item and material. Where are these coming from? From those two models. Okay, this is one thing to note. The second thing to note is the name of this table. Okay, note that the material, the M of material and I of item were capital in the class, right? Let me go back.
Sir,
Model.py.
how will we know which bit system we have? Like if we have Windows 11, it should be 64 bit, right?
64 bit only. Mostly download 64 bit. That is something that
Okay,
is
okay.
universally accepted. Okay, so you can see here, coming back to this, you can see that the class was created with capital M, which is a convention that we follow while creating classes in Python. Okay, but the tables will be created with the same name but all small, all lowercase. All right, same thing with item. All right, now let us try to browse data. So if I go to browse data here, let us see what is created. What are the columns that I've created? So you can see that there is ID, name, and quantity for item. And what is there for material? What should be there? It should be ID and name. Okay. How are these coming? These are coming from the class variables that we have defined. Okay. Now let us try to see. So we have this, right? Column is primary key auto incremented. If it is auto incremented, it should take it by itself, right? It should take it by itself. Okay. First thing. Second thing is the name. Okay. So let us see. And it is unique and it is non-nullable, right? So let me try to do that. Let me check if the constraints are working fine. See, so how do I manually add data here? If I click on this add data, so do you see that it has taken one by itself? Why is this happening? Because it is a primary key. So primary key, it makes sure that it does not remain null, first thing. And second thing, it is auto incremented. Okay. Now let me try to write changes. Something happened. Changes are written. All right. So the second thing is name. All right. So this is, I mean, we will hover and we'll write changes. Okay, now what is happening here? What have I done? I have started, what I've done is I went into this name attribute, I left it empty, I did not add anything, and I went on to creating a new record. Okay, what does it say? It has given me it has given me what we call a schema of the same tables, telling that you're trying to insert and you are you need to insert name because it is not null. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll put name here. Okay, give me a material plastic. Okay. So when you have added one, you have written plastic, then you can write changes. All right. And now I can move on to this second. So you see that it has now
Why?
not shown anything.
So why is that it is showing this error when we are trying to create a second record? Ideally, when we are writing the changes for the first record itself, it should have thrown this error, right?
No, why? For the first record itself, it showed, right? It did not. I did not
No,
allow me to
no.
show, add a second record unless I put something there.
Right, I am asking it should not allow us to write changes, not adding record. One plastic, two and null. It should not allow us to write changes now itself.
Acha, what
That's
you're
what
saying?
I
Okay, I created on. See, I mean, I'm not sure if that actually happened. Okay, I simply did try to add another record.
I tried
Hmm.
try now writing changes the same way. No, no, without any.
Yeah.
It
So see,
is
it
it
actually,
is happening actually.
it is
So,
happening.
so currently, this is the structure of this is the data present, and it has one plastic and two null, which is violating the
No. So
constraint.
basically, it is not null. It is empty string.
Okay.
Okay. I mean,
Okay.
okay. So if
But
we
in
see
that case,
the
for three also, why it is asking when I add the record three, if it is empty string?
wait a second.
So I guess
So
when you're
currently,
adding next record, it will give an error. So if you add a new record here, the error will trigger because it is inserting that new row immediately after. So if you try to add a new record, it will throw an error because the name is empty for
yeah,
the
that is
previous.
what has happened, right? Because I mean, that happened with the first case also. Okay, so it will allow me to write changes. I mean, I'm not sure about why is it doing write changes. Okay, that is something with the application. But if I try to do it, I mean, see, this is manually, right? I'm doing it manually. Okay, but when I try to interact with the table directly, okay, that is something that app is doing. But if I try to do it with this particular interface, when I directly, interact with the class, then it won't allow me. Okay, I'll show you that also. Okay, so let us see that. I was just trying to give you an idea of what is the table created, what are the attributes, and what are the other things.
One small observation that I just came across is this writing changes. I was thinking it synonymous with commit, but it is not the case because when I entered one and null and gave write changes, the write changes operation was successful. But when I issued a select star from item, yeah, select star from the table, it was not giving any rows. So I think there is something we need to explore on why it is allowing to write without giving a value with null values added.
There will be consistency when we will directly interact with the class. Okay, see, DB browser we are not doing to do the CRUD. I was just there to see what are the changes happening with the database. Okay, so I mean, if I want to manually add something, or if I want to check whether the data has been added or not, I'll use DB browser. But how will I be interacting with the database? With for now with CLI, but later on we'll move on to controllers. Okay, so just let me give you some example on how you do the CRUD operation with CLI. Okay, so now let us
So for the
try.
SQL, so for the DB browser, like, do we need SQL Cipher?
No, 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 nothing is needed as such. I mean, just install it. It is a a local application, and
No, no,
open it, and
in
you
the setup for DB browser, it is asking SQL Cipher. Do you want to install?
you don't need
No,
to.
right?
Whatever is the default thing, you just do it with install.
Okay, sir.
Okay, you don't need to do anything because see, basically DB browser we are just using just to view. Okay, currently I showed you we can add because I will now move on to how do we do it with Python. Okay, so for that we will move on to this thing again, our explanation.txt. Let us recall. So I created a class that helped me in creating a table. All right. And within the class, I defined this attributes that help me creating the columns. Now, if I want to add a new row, if I want to add a new entry, what will I create? In Python, I'll create an object. Okay. So that is what I'm going to do now. Okay. So let's say mat1. It is just a variable. Okay. mat1 is a new object. How do I create a new object for a class? I'll write the class name and call it with giving the attributes. We are not using any constructor, so we'll have to manually add everything. Okay. But the other thing that we need to look here is, okay, let me add what are the attributes. So we'll add a value, provide values one by one. So let me go to my model.py. It is having name and it is string. Okay, so I'll go back here
Sir,
and
can you
here.
query the schema in command line?
Sorry.
Can you query the schema in the command line? Like
No,
you,
query I cannot do. This is Python shell. It is not SQL. If you want to see the schema, you can go to data structure in DB browser, go to table, and here you will see the schema.
Yeah, because that will help us to know which fields we need to provide data for.
You can do it in models also. I'm referring to models.
No, no, on that Python command line, how would you know that you have to provide integer ID and name? Those two variables you need to provide unless you know
Because you
what
have the
field that
access,
is.
because you have the access to the model, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah. So every time you will be having the access to model. So okay. So now I will not be providing ID. I'll be just providing the name. Okay. It doesn't write why. Yeah. It writes now. I'll be providing the name. Why is that? Because Flask SQL Alchemy, in Flask SQL Alchemy, we do not need to provide the primary key value. All right. So if ID is the primary key, I don't need to explicitly provide primary key because it is auto incremented and it is not null. So by itself, it will take. And that has been happening with DB browser also, right? So when I go to, sorry, not this. When I go to browse data and I wanted to add new record, you can see that the 3 was coming by itself, right? So I did not have to add this 3. It came by itself, and since it was auto incremented, right? So if there is 1 2, the next should be 3 definitely. So it won't really worry about it. So what will I do now here? I will only provide that is required. Okay, so let me see what is the other material. Let's say wood. Okay, so this is how I will just create an object of class material. Okay, so my object of class material is created. Now I need to make sure that it goes to the database, that it gets committed to the database. All
Sir,
right, so what
if I
will I
had
do?
sir, if I had like exited the Python shell,
Huh.
so can I just start writing this material equal? So I do not have to create the database again, right?
No, no, no. Yes, directly you can start writing with this. This is once the database, you have that SQLite 3 file, right? So you don't need to create it. This is something that will happen only once. Okay, I will do this only when I change the schema for some reason. If I change the class for some reason, okay, every change to be incorporated, I'll have to do this db.create all. Okay, but for every addition of record, I don't need to, because addition of record is only happening to existing database, not new. So I don't need to do this. Okay.
Yeah, but we need to open the command file, command prompt from within that folder. Suppose there is a
Yeah,
week
yeah.
5, week 6, week 7 folder. If I open command prompt in week 7, then the DB name is different and it will not work. Correct? So the command prompt has
Yes.
to open in that. And then
Yeah.
Python.
See, the
Very
first thing that you
specific.
need is this. This has to be imported, because see, you're using this material, right? Where is this material coming from?
From app.py.
This to happen, the app module should reside wherever you are working. All right. All right. So what I'll do next is the next thing that you need to do is you need to add whatever object you have created in the session. Okay. So that is db dot session dot add. Okay. And what do you have to add? Mad1. Okay, so this is something that we'll understand more clearly when you go ahead, but this is one step that we have to do. Basically, we make sure that of all the objects that we have created, there are some object that I want to, uh, whichever object that I want to go into database, that have to be added into session first. All right. So first I'll do this db.session.add. This will make sure that mat1 will get added to my database, to my table. All right, and to make sure that this changes become persistent, what we'll have to do, I'll have to commit the changes. Okay, so I'll write db dot session dot commit. Okay, no argument here, only comment. Just call it, and you'll see, I mean, it takes some time, not much, but all right. Okay, some error, database. Okay, why is that happening? Okay, I'll not explain this for now, because this is something that we will see later. Okay, so why is this? Because of
Uh,
this, right? So
I'm
what
also
I'll do
getting
is,
this error that file stdin in line one
So
module something.
for
Name
me it
material is
worked.
not defined.
Yeah, for me it
once,
worked. It created a third row and it said wood
yes,
there. Where XYZ is
yes,
written, it
because I did not,
automatically.
yeah, because I did not leave it as is, right? So I'll delete this, and I'll select this, and I'll delete this, and then I'll write changes. So when the write changes happen, the database is not anymore locked. Okay, so I'll make sure, I'll see that, we'll see here. Okay, so let me do this, exit and everything again. Okay, so let me come back to somebody else's error. It says material not defined. Why is that happening?
Sir, It is saying
What does it say?
so it is saying that trace back most recent last. So
That is okay.
file stdin line 1 in module name error name material is not defined.
Okay, fine. All right. So just make sure you're writing the way I'm writing. Okay. From app import star. All right. From
Okay,
app
we need
import
to do
star.
that just first.
Okay. Why is this? Because we are not, we have to make sure that everything from app module is imported. All right. Now what I'll do, I'll create that mat1 object material. And as I said, what will we provide? Only name.
Yes, sir, it is working now.
Okay. Then once the object is created, what we'll do, we'll add it into session. So db dot session dot add. Okay. And then db dot session dot commit. Let's see this happen if this works. This works, right? Because there was some inherent changes that did not happen, and the database was actually working with that change, so it did not happen. But now you can see that it is now ready to take input. This means there are no errors happening. Now let me go back and reload this, so you can see that the wood has come. Okay, so uh, now let me try to explain you what is actually happening. Okay, so what is actually happening, what did I say? When I want to add a new record, I'll have to create a new object. So that is happening here in second line. All right, then whatever I want, whatever change I want to happen, whatever things that I want to get added into the database, that has to be added into session first. Okay, and when I run this command db.session.commit, everything that was added in session will get added to the database and get saved. Okay, so for making sure that this material one, okay, to get added into database, it should be added in the session first. Okay, so this is the step that you will go through every time when you make the commit. All right, now let us try to do another thing. mat2 equals to material, and I leave it as is and I'll hit enter. Okay, now I'll do db dot session dot add mat2. Okay, now I want this mat2 to go to database. What I'll do, just hit couple of up arrows so that the memory I already told. Then when I do commit, it gives me a very big error. What is the error? Not null constraint failed. Right? Why is this coming? Was this intuitive? Was this expected?
Yeah, because we had put a policy that it should not be null.
Yes, right. So I mean, I don't know what DB browser was doing internally with write changes, but when you interact it with SQL Alchemy, it will make sure, or it will completely strictly follow the schema. All right. So when I said that it cannot be null, and if I try to add something with null value, it will definitely throw error. On the other hand, what I can do is this. Let me show that mat2. What I can do is, this is fine. This will get added because empty string is in a way is a value. Okay, so I'm adding an empty string. It's not a null value. All right, so this will work. Okay, now let me do a couple of other things. Now let us add two items. Okay, I'll do IPM1 equals to. Now what should I write? Now I
So,
want that item. Yeah, but
so one question on the previous line. Suppose we have to add a new attribute later. We had two attributes. For example, a practical example is when government made Aadhaar mandatory for all the banks. Suddenly, a new column had to be created for all the say 3 crore
yeah,
savings account customer of State Bank of India. That all of them
right,
have to have another field. So, if we
right.
want to add another field right now, when you've already committed three, can we do that? Like in that object, we have already had couple of methods. Is it possible?
Yes and no. Why at this point we cannot do that? Okay, if I want to do that, then what I'll do, I'll simply add a new row here with, let's say, another field. But then for this change to incorporate, I'll have to delete the database and recreate it. Okay, so no. Okay, but later on, I mean, we won't see that, but later on you will study something called as Flask migrations. So what migrations does is it allows you to do real-time changes in the database schema without hurting the previous data. Okay, so with this configuration you cannot, but when you have Flask migrations incorporated, what will happen? The real-time changes in the models will also get incorporated in the database. Okay, so if I happen to add a new column, the database will recreate itself, but it will also maintain the previous data. Okay, are you getting this?
Yes, yes. I
Right,
thought
so
it will take
migration
just,
is
yeah, I
go
thought it
ahead.
will take NA values for the first three rows, but for the fourth row it will start taking actual values.
So that is how
That,
migrations work. If you add a new column, it will start, I mean, it will add a new column. It will fill some dummy value or null value for, for the ones that did not have that value initially, but then will start taking new values. That will happen, but that will happen with Flask migrations, not this SQL Alchemy. Okay. So it is another extension that we'll have to, add and work with. Currently we are limited with or bound with this thing that if you really want to add a new column, delete the old data and recreate it, which is okay in our case because we are testing the application, and you can see that every time we'll be having only 2 to 3 rows only at the in the table, not more than that, as far as testing is concerned.
yeah, that's understandable. I asked this because in my real life, in my day job, I do face such scenarios. Simple thing like linking Aadhaar to PAN, which is
Right.
for a bank. So they will just simply make one simple HTML file on SBI's
uh,
website. You have to go put
yeah,
your Aadhaar number, PAN card number, and you have to link it. It will just hit the UPI Aadhaar's database, it will verify it, and it will then say, okay, your Aadhaar is populated against your PAN card.
right.
Now your account will work. This
Right,
simple
right.
thing
So, I
of
mean,
making
see,
app
those
and a
things
website.
actually,
Yeah.
right, right.
Sorry.
Those things actually have those things incorporated. We are moving on to very basics. I mean, moving on to advanced things, but from very basic. So, at this point, we do not have migrations. Okay.
Sure, sir.
Okay. All right. So, later on, we'll see that when we, try to relate these two tables with relationship, we will definitely will need to add new columns. So, how do we do that? What we'll do is we'll simply delete the database and recreate it once again. Okay, but as of now we don't need it. Okay, so okay, let me move back to item, right? So we have created two things into this thing, material table. Now let us create two objects or two records for item table. Okay, so what I'll do is to get it added into item, I'll write item because I want to create an object of item class. All right, again I'll not provide ID because I don't need to, it is an auto incremented primary key. So what I'll be providing is only name. Okay, I'll write polybags because they are, I mean, not polybags. And the other thing was quantity, right? So, yeah, so all the attributes can be added as comma separated. Okay, so name, polybags, comma, quantity, and it is an integer, so I can directly write 4. I don't need to write it in strings. Okay, so not only 4, let's say 400. Okay, so this is one item added. Let me create another item 2. Okay, let's say stools. Okay, quantity 50. Okay, so this is another item. I have item 1, I have item 2. Okay, now what I'll do is, let's say db dot session dot add item1. Okay, db dot session dot. Okay, so when I do this, something happened. Insert into materials. That is okay, fine. Okay, so that actually we have created this thing, right? Mat2, and Mat2 has this. So what we'll do is we'll change it. So this thing is already there, right? So what I'll do is I'll just put something else. Name equals to uh, Now let us do that. Okay, it throws error. This is the thing with SQL Alchemy. Will have to exit and do everything again. I mean, if there is an error, it will keep it will store those error because the variables are defined now. So what we'll do is, the better thing is, any change you do, if there is any error, just close the shell completely and open a new shell. So that is what I'm going to do now. I've closed the shell, I've opened a new shell, and since we have opened a new shell, the variables that were already defined are now gone, right? So we'll have to import those. So from app, import stuff. Okay, everything is imported. This means we have DB, we have material, we have item. TV we don't need because we are not again creating the database. Let us create item one. Okay, so let me see if that is there. Okay, it's not there. ITM one equals to item. I mean, this is very similar to creating an object in Python, right? So we just create a variable, we use that class name and provide whatever, are the variables that it takes, whatever values it takes to first create. Okay, so we won't be providing ID because it is a primary key. Polybanks. Okay, and then there is, okay, not Q capital, quantity. Quantity equals to 400. Okay, so this is my one item. Let me create another item called as item 2. Same thing which I did, but it threw error for the other reason. Let's say table. Okay, so I've created two objects. This is object creation. All right, so I created two objects. Now I'll add these objects into session. Okay, now please note that I'm only adding only one of this object, right? Item one. Okay, db.session.add item one. Okay, and db.session. Okay, so as you can see that as I closed and reopened shell, the error was gone because actually it's the shell somehow retains the variable because it cannot overwrite on the changes. Okay, so once the error has come, it is error. All right, so now
So,
you can see
so
that.
can you not add to session like in one command? Do you have to like do two commands for it?
Yeah, I'll show that also. So for now, if you see item, you will see only polybags added. All right. So this is where session comes into picture, right? So if I want to add, simply creating the item or simply creating the object is not, is not sufficient. Yeah, it is required because you need to provide what exactly you are creating with all the attributes, all the columns given. Okay, but it is required to add everything that you want to get saved into database to be added to the session. Okay, so this is one way of doing it, right? db.session.add. So if I want item 2 also to get added, what will I do? db.session.add item 2, and then I do commit dot commit, right? So when I do this, I'll make sure that, okay, item 2 is also added. Now this is problematic, right? Because I want to add, let's say, 3 4 items. How will I do that? So what will I do? I'll do db dot session dot add it's, I think, add list. Okay, and then we will provide a list. Okay, list of objects. So it is item 1 comma item 2. I'm not very sure about the syntax for now, but this is what you do. So it's add list. Okay, let's see. Scope session attributes. Okay, let us give underscore. Or maybe add all. This works. So add all is a method that will take a list because it will assume that you're adding multiple items, right? So it will add item 1, item 2, and now when you do db dot session dot commit, it will add both. Okay, so it can be a list of multiple objects getting created as an object, right? So you can see that now when you reload this, you'll have polybags and table. All right, this is clear. So see, this is how you now have created models. All right, you have defined what should they store, right? Then you have configured that model into your app.py. You have specified where it should store, what should be the database name. All right, and then these are some, some formalities that we have to do internally, and then we use CLI to interact with the app.py. Okay, so open a Python shell, we use this, I mean, we import everything, then we create objects. All right, and in the object we'll see that we don't need to provide the primary key attribute. Apart from that, everything that is required has to be provided. Everything that can be, I mean, that cannot be null has to be provided. All right, then we saw session. Okay, so session require, I mean, session will make sure that whatever you want to add in the database is added, and then finally the commit. So commit will make sure that everything is there. Okay, everything gets saved to the database. Okay, any doubt till this point?
So, in the last session, I guess when we were making an application, you talked about get and post, how the
Right.
get work and how the post works. So, if we see the item one, polybags, 400, the example of post, right? We're just posting something to the database,
Right,
and
right. So basically, I mean, there are these operations, right? CRUD, create, read, update, delete. So what we have seen here is the C part, creating part. Okay, and that definitely, I mean, when we will, so currently we don't have endpoints, right? When we will create endpoints in this app.py, we will be making use of these commands only, right? But then the data that has to be added to the database will happen by post. We will see that when we'll create an application using, I mean, incorporating the controller and SQL icon.
yeah, that will be very useful, very knowledge giving
Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah, definitely.
I think
We will create an application.
but that's what like we do in Google Forms, right? If we want to capture someone's email address and maybe some text, then instead of using Google Forms, we can play around and make our own sample Google form, a simple
Right.
HTML form that captures something and stores in a database.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That we can do. We'll see that. We'll create an application on this. So we will be extending this now. I mean, now see, now the item and material were two independent tables, right? Now we will link those two tables with one-to-many relationship. Okay. Then once the relationship is established, then we will start creating controllers in this application, which actually deal with that database and make changes to the database. Okay. So basically, we'll be doing all the CRUD operations with the help of controllers now. Not today, don't worry. Okay, so with this I'll do a very small thing and then we can stop for today. All right, so here we have seen that how to add things into database. Now once the things are added, I don't have this DB browser with me. How do I query? How do I understand what is there in the database? So that we'll see now, how to read data from the database. Okay, so I'll very quickly create one item. Okay, ITM3. Okay, and now I'm not creating a new item. I'm retrieving an item from the database. Okay, so what I'll do, I'll query the same class that I want to retrieve item from. Okay, so item will be retrieved from which class? Item class. Item. Then I'll write dot query dot get. Okay, item dot query dot get. This get method actually takes the primary key of the values in the database. Okay, so I mean, let us try to retrieve item with the help of primary key. Okay, I know that there is one item with primary key 1. I know at this point I know that. Okay, we don't have to worry about what if I don't know. Later on we'll see that also. But let's see that if I want to query an item whose primary key is 1, how do I do that? I'll write the class name, then dot query dot get, and then provide the primary key. Okay, let me do enter to this. All right, I mean, this is a warning, so don't worry about warning. But now if I click on, I mean, if I write item 3 and hit enter, you will see that the item has been retrieved. Okay, now this is intuitive, right? When I added a record in the database, what did I create in Python? Object. All right, similarly, now on the vice versa, when I'm trying to retrieve a record from database, when it comes to Python, what will it become?
An
Anybody would like
object.
to answer? Object. So this is an object. I hope you remember an object is represented by angle brackets. All right. Now, if I want to see, so the complete object is a record. So it's not that I'm retrieving only one, I'm retrieving the entire record. What I mean by this is, let me go to item. Yeah. So when I retrieve this one, it's not only one I'm retrieving this entire record. Entire record. And what is the proof of that? I can just write itm3 dot quantity, because I know quantity is one of the attributes. You can see 400. That has been retrieved from the database now. Okay. Similarly, I can write item3 dot name polyvags. Right. So with this method, I can query everything that is there in the database. Okay. Now this is only one. What if I wanted to retrieve everything from the table? It's like select star. So how do we do that? I'll write items, because I know that there will be multiple items now. So these variables, you can name anything. I'm just writing intuitive variable names. So what I'll do, item dot query, but this time it won't be get, it will be all. Clear, right? I want to retrieve all, just use all method. Okay. Now everything has been retrieved as, so when I retrieve one object, what has happened? I got one object. When I retrieve everything, what will I get? I'll get list of objects. All right, list of objects. Let us see this. Items, and I hit enter. So you can see that it is two objects coming, because I know that there are two objects in that table. All right. So it is like, exchange is properly happening between Python and SQL. When I add something from Python and put it into SQL, similarly on the other hand, when I retrieve something from SQL and when it comes to the Python, it will follow the same analogy, right? A class getting retrieved as table. Generally, we won't retrieve table. We will retrieve record. Mostly, we will retrieve record. All right. So this is how you read the data from database.
Sir, is it a key value pair? Is item one a key value pair like a dictionary? With the primary key as the key and the other field as values?
No, do you see this is a dictionary? This is an object.
Yeah, so when I wrote ITMS and then put zero to get the first item, I got item one. If I want
Yes.
to do ITMS then zero, then dot something, just to understand if it's a dictionary and get everything, is it possible to
Yes, it is.
suddenly?
No, no. So that is not because it is a dictionary. That is because it is an object. So object dot attribute is what you're getting.
Understood, sir. Understood.
Right? Because we are in class and object, right? So you need to bring that everything that comes with an object. Right? So I mean, if I created an object, for example, my name, and my name has my name, my surname. So if I create an object with my name dot name will give me my name dot surname will give me my surname. I hope you're getting. Okay. All right. So what you are said, let us see that. Okay. So ITMS, since it is a list, I can do indexing. So I can write 0. Okay. What will this give me? It will give me item 1, the first item of this list item. Okay. So I can also do this item S, then 0, because I know this, sorry, this will have the first item dot name. What will this give me? The name of first item, polybags. Okay. So since it is a list of objects, object dot attribute will give me the value of attribute. So it's not like dictionary. It is the actual object of Python. Okay. Similarly, if I do this item 1, what will it give me? It will give me everything about second item. So let us try to get the quantity of second item. I'll get 50, and it is evident from the. This is what we have retrieved. All right. So this is whatever we have seen from this point. From this point, whatever we have seen is actually get, right? So we are retrieving things from the database. So this is get. Okay. Whatever we have seen from here to here is post. We are making changes or we are adding new records in the database. Okay. How do we make sure that this happen with the help of an endpoint, form, submit? We will see in upcoming lectures. Okay, is this clear till this point? Any issue? Okay, one issue might be, sir, I knew what was the primary key. What if I don't know the primary key, but I know that there is a name? Okay, I know that there is something called as polybags. Okay, for example, this polybags. Okay, let's say there are hundreds of items. I don't know what the primary key is, but I know that there is an item with name polybags. How do we retrieve that? So that we'll see here very quickly. So I'll write POLY because I know I am retrieving polybag. Just any name, right? What I'll do is it will be item dot query dot, but this time not get, not all, will be, now we are trying to retrieve based on some, some attribute. So what we'll do, filter by, and what are we filtering with the name, right? So it's name equals to polybags. Okay, this is not all. Now from the thing, so there can be multiple polybags also, right? I don't know how many polybags are there, but there can be multiple polybags, but I just want the first item of it. So dot first, I just want the first item which matches my query. Okay, I got. Now let us see what it retrieves. Yes, it retrieved item one because I know the first item was polybag. All right. So this can be extended. Okay, where is this? Yeah, this can be extended to anything, right? So I wrote name. I could have written quantity. So filter by is something when you want to retrieve a record based on some attribute. Okay. And get is used when you want to retrieve based on primary key. Okay, and all is when you want to retrieve everything. So I hope you are making a note of these methods. If not, just watch this session later and write all these things in one page. This will help you.
Sir, is this like when we use a database, we use to search through the database, we use is like this a string to match
No, is
with the.
like, no, not exactly is like, because see, if I remove this poly bag, if I remove this S and keep it poly bag, it will not give me anything. Okay, so this has to be exact match. Okay, exact value matching.
So
Filtering.
is there a way we can implement that thing?
Yes, we can. But we'll see it later, no, when we, progress. So there is something called as SQL wildcards, right? So we'll make use of that in SQL Alchemy. So this is in context of search functionality, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. We can do that. We'll see. Okay. So this is how so we have seen two things. One is how do you add something into the database, and how do you retrieve something from the database. Okay. So we have seen C and R of CRUD, and we are yet to see update and delete, which is very simple. I mean, easier than create and read. We'll see that in upcoming, new another session that we're going to have after quiz one. And I don't want to overload you with a lot of content, so better to grasp everything, whatever we have given in today's session, and be ready with this. Till this point, you should be very clear. Then later on, we will modify our models for them to relate with each other now. Okay, so we'll be establishing relationships. It can be many to many, one to many. Both have a different way of coding, but we will be looking at one to many basically. Okay, any issues till this point?
No, sir.
Okay, so you try it out, create new models from your end, try to add data, try to read data from there. Okay, fine. So with that, we'll stop here. If there are any doubts, if there is any error that you're facing, you can share your screen and we'll try to clear it. Okay, I'll stop sharing. Okay, and so the thing is, later on, I mean, the upcoming sessions also, we will be using the same code base. Okay, so I will share the files with you, today also, but please keep the code ready with you for the next session because we'll be working on the same. Okay, and in that sense, it will make sense because you know how we started off, right? From the scratch up to the application.
Sir, I have a doubt regarding the project. So
Hmm.
we can do everything with this ORM, and we don't have to use the SQLite for the
No,
project, right?
everything and anything can be done with ORM. Yes.
So if we use this ORM, will we get full marks based on this or
Yeah, I mean, you see, if you're able to do all the CRUD operations, see, important is CRUD. How do you implement is not important. Okay.
okay, sir.
So
Also,
inside
at
the
this, at the
instance,
while using ORM is very, I mean, convenient Pythonic way. We are not, asking you to use ORM only. If you are very familiar with, the connect and cursor and things like that, go ahead with that. No issues.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, go ahead,
um,
Hasnur.
sir, I have one doubt.
Hmm.
Hello.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead. Am I audible?
Okay, sir. Yes, sir. So inside that instance file, we have created one database that is my test db.sqli3, and there is showing another database called same name, but there is an extension journal. So what's that, sir?
Is it in PyCache? No. Where is it?
No, sorry, in instance, inside instance.
In instance. I don't see any other file. I only see one. See, maybe you have
You
used db.create all multiple times.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I have
Yeah.
used that.
So do
Yeah.
not just once. Once the database is created, never use it.
Okay,
Okay.
sir.
We will use db. See, what does that mean? You create a database with the given model. Okay. Now, if I
Okay.
change the model, till now what we did, we first created the model, we created database, and then we were
Yes.
only interacting with it. We did not do anything with the model as such. Right? In the upcoming session,
Yes.
when we establish relationship, we might have to change a couple of rows here and there, a couple of columns here and there, some tweaks in the model. So what will that do? It will completely change the model. In that case, what we'll have to do,
Yes.
we'll have to delete the old database created and do db.create all once again.
Mm.
So every change in model.py, that classes and all that we have created, every change in that will
Mm.
require you to create, do that db.create all once again. If you have not changed your classes or
Mm.
models, you don't need to do db.create
Okay, sir. Got it.
all, right?
So
So
since
when
I have
you,
used that, yeah.
yeah, maybe because of that, yes.
Yes.
All right. So when
Yes,
we
sir.
interact with CLI, even if I close the shell couple of times, I open it back. What will I do? Only I'll just import everything. I will not do db.create all. Okay. I can show you
Okay.
if I still that command is still there. Yeah. So just give me a minute.
Okay, sure.
Say, like, to close the project, we can just exit the virtual environment, right? We have to
Deactivate.
exit.
Just write deactivate. I'll show you just that also. Okay, so in the shell, if you see this, this is where I've created new shell, Python shell. Okay, because I was facing error, right? So I did exit. Then I created new shell again. I mean, I recreated the Python shell. Then you see I've imported app, import everything, and I did not use DB. I directly started creating objects,
Yes, sir.
right? That was happening for the very first time I did. Okay. Now, once you're done with this, once you think, okay, now this is done for the day, let me close this everything. So what will you do? You will exit the Python shell with this call. Okay. And then
Mm.
you will be moved on to the same terminal, right? Now in the terminal, you will write deactivate, only deactivate, write it, and you'll see that
Only
the virtual
deactivate.
environment is on. Okay. So with that, this also makes sure that you accidentally do not add anything and everything in virtual environment. Okay. So activate virtual environment only when you're working with it. Once you're done, deactivate it.
So for activating its scripts, so what's the comment for that, sir? Scripts, and after that, whatever the environment name, scripts, and then activate. Okay.
All
And
right.
for deactivating is just deactivate.
Just deactivate.
Okay.
Say, what if we just like we do this db.create all even though we have already done it? It will
See,
override
generally,
the file.
see what happens is it generally does not do anything, but what if it recreate the database and overwrite the old one, right? So in that case, your data will be unnecessarily lost. Okay. Every time you do that db.create all, it will create a new instance of that database. So what if it overwrites it? Sometimes it happens, sometimes it create a new file. So it is inconsistent in that way. So what you need to do is do not use it. Once you're done with it, unless you change the model, do not use it. Okay, and that is the reason where even when we create our app.py, we will be doing db.create all after opening CLI only. We'll open CLI, open Python shell, do db.create all, and do exit. That's all. Because now everything else, CRUD operations can be done by our model controllers. Okay, so we'll see that. We'll see that.
Sir, instead of doing this in the CLI, we can write an if statement checking if the SQLite file exists. We don't run the create all method. We can
Yeah,
hard code that into the
coding
code.
that you can do anything. Anything can be coded. No issues with that. But see, the thing is unnecessarily. Why do you want to keep that call anyway, right? So we will not keep that as a in the call. And the thing is, I mean, then it has to be added in that if name equals to main call. So there are certain things. Definitely, you can. No issues with that. Write a condition. See if it is there. If it is there, do not run it. But then again, you'll have to use other things to make this happen. I don't see any requirement, right? Okay, so we'll stop it here if there are no more doubts. In the next session, after quiz, we will be continuing with this, where we will see the relationship, one to many relationship. How do we relate these two?
So how did we like activate the uh, virtual environment? Like,
I'll just type it on the chat. Give me a minute.
okay.
So will the submission date for week 6 and week 5 will coincide, or will there be like?
Looks like I'm not sure. I haven't seen the deadline for week 6. Let
Okay.
me check. Week 6 hasn't been released yet, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
maybe that will be the case.
Okay.
Okay, so this is the command my env. So this is your virtual environment name scripts activate. Okay. Okay, so I hope
Okay, sir.
everything, I mean, not everything, but this session actually help you to understand what exactly we are doing with database and where does SQL Alchemy comes in. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So thank you so much.
Okay, fine. So with that, we'll close this session and we'll see you on next Wednesday. All right, with addition to whatever we have learned today.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Thank you,
thank you,
sir.
sir.
Okay, thanks everyone. Thanks for joining. I'll close the session.